are zooming in from the committee, we do have that up. I will see that your hands are up. We will be able to interact. And so we will jump in and get started. And up first today, we have Commissioner Bai. Good morning.
Good morning, Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, Senator Berthel, Representative McCarty, and distinguished members of the Education Committee. My name is Beth Bai. I'm Commissioner of the Office of Early Childhood, and I'm here to testify in support of the Governor's Bill HB 5061, an act establishing Early Start Connecticut, and the OEC Bill SB 152, an act implementing the recommendations of the Office of Early Childhood. My testimony is before you, so I'm going to try to hit the high points and then leave time for questions. I think members of this committee are well aware that the first 5 years are so important in a child's development and both help the child later in school, but also in life. Governor Lamont established a Blue Ribbon panel on childcare 11 months ago and charged panel members with coming up with a strategic vision and plan for a sustainable early childhood system. The plan was informed by thousands of providers, parents, businesses, and interested residents. And I'm grateful for the co-chairs and ranking members for their participation. So that's that. An act establishing Early Start Connecticut is really an attempt to simplify the system and make it work for parents and make it work for providers. What we have now at OEC is numerous programs, all with great intentions from the 60s, the 90s, the 2000s, that have led to complexity. And during the Blue Ribbon panel process, we heard that it would be much easier, and we believe as an agency, it would be easier to have a single state-funded early childhood system that takes the best of all of the existing systems. The governor's budget does ask for 3 positions to help support this work. The current funding mechanisms includes grants and contracts and different reporting requirements, and we'll be looking to simplify those into a single contract-based program that would be ultimately run by a request for proposal process that relies on the local school readiness councils to provide both an assessment of community need and also a plan that would then be used to inform the RFP. One of the big changes that this proposes is to pay programs by classroom versus by child to help stabilize the system, to help programs hire teachers to have in place versus needing X number of children before they can hire teachers. We have hundreds of empty classrooms across the state right now because of some of this funding inconsistency of funding by child. I mentioned that the new system would have local governance partners. What are now School Readiness Council would be governance councils because they would be overseeing the whole system for their community, grounded in community needs. The other thing this would do, program, is that we could have a uniform assessment of early childhood needs that each community would do. So we could have a sense of what the overall state needs are for early childhood. And the governor's budget also calls for some additional funding for the governance partners to hire what are now school readiness liaisons. It's a shared expense with communities, but that kind of position that oversees equality in the local programs and also monitors to make sure they're meeting the rules. There will be a continued focus on quality. Connecticut has the most accredited early childhood programs in the United States, and that's not proportional, that's period, because the state-funded system since the 90s has required programs to get nationally accredited, and we would hold on to that high-quality standard. We're also asking in this bill to simplify and streamline staff requirements so that someone with a bachelor's or an associate's could be a qualified staff member. An associate's teacher would need to be supervised by a bachelor's. For years, the goal has been that everyone have a bachelor's. Despite our best efforts, given the compensation That has not been possible. Only about a quarter of our teachers right now have a bachelor's. Most have an associate's or a bachelor's. But to create a clear pathway, because it's also a super complex pathway now. So we're talking about really being the first state that implements what's called the unifying framework to give teachers a portable credential they could also take to any states. To any state. The bill also calls for the establishment of a tri-share program where businesses, the state, and parents share in the cost of childcare in Eastern Connecticut. And then the bill also calls for slight changes in the ratios for childcare classrooms. 2-year-olds, the classrooms could be 1 to 5. Right now it's 1 to 4. It would remain 1 to 4 for children under 2. And school age ratios we're recommending go to 1 to 15 from 1 to 10. Children are with way more than 10 children are with one adult all day at school. So these are older children, and we believe this can help with some supply of after school care. And we're also calling for Care for Kids to move from limit of 60% of the state median income for families up to 65% of the state median income, allowing more families into that program. And the budget calls for also opening up access from 18,500 to 20,000 to make sure that as you're letting a wider band in, you're also making room so that the families at all ends of the spectrum can still access Care for Kids. And then I'll switch to Senate Bill 152, which is our bill implementing the recommendations of the Office of Early Childhood. This is our agency bill. The first section is a change to the requirements about developmental milestones to just have that required up to age 5. So before and after school programs would not have to post the child development milestones. In section 2, we're trying to fix a problem that we now have in our protective services category. Over the past year, OEC has worked with DCF to have the Office of Early Childhood administer their childcare funding because they were actually having to direct contract with every childcare center where a child in their custody or in foster care was placed. And we did leave out subsidized guardianship when we made that law. And so there's a whole group of folks who do not have access to this easier access to childcare. Subsidized guardians would be added in this legislation. We're also asking in section 3 that OEC could more expeditiously implement federal policy changes in Care for Kids. For example, we fully expect the federal government to cap parent fees at 7%. Without something like this policy handbook in place, we couldn't do that and comply with federal laws until we came back to the legislature, had a bill, and passed that. This basically allows us to publish and use some of the federal guidelines as those change for Care for Kids policies. And section 4 is really that we have had challenges since the pandemic with early childhood programs not allowing birth to 3 professionals in. And for children that have IFSPs, that have developmental disabilities, it's really important that the birth to 3 providers have access in childcare with parent permission because parents have to consent. And we're just saying, if you're a licensed program, you have to let the special educators in to support the child. And that ends my testimony, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Commissioner. I think anytime we hear the words unify, simplify, I think these are really great buzzwords and will help to kind of overhaul a system that is disjointed. It kind of follows along the similar path we've taken with kind of fixing our very disjointed education funding system for K-12. And so it's nice to see that we'll have that kind of continuum of thought. And we appreciate your leadership on bringing a lot of this forward. Couple questions with respect to the Care for Kids and the increasing 60 to 65%. Is this going to impact or how will this impact the current wait list, and what will that look like moving forward?
Yes, we currently have a wait list for Care for Kids of about 2 months for families to get in. The budget does 2 things, Representative, and we think this helps with the wait list. The current budget is budgeted on 18,500 children in Care for Kids. We currently have 19,000. So we would have to ratchet it down a little bit as people left. You'd have to wait for more people to leave before letting more people in. The governor's budget calls for 20,150 spaces to open up, to open up room for another 1,600 children. And that's meant to accommodate for some of the additional children up to 65% of SMI.
So we essentially just need to kind of put our heads together to see about how we just simply get that down to zero. So they'll
The wait list.
correct. With regards to the protected class, thank you for filling in that gap. I know the legislature was happy to partner with you last session to get this language in. No piece of legislation is perfect the first time around. This is a great example of that. And so we appreciate on that. The local governance councils, can you talk a little bit about that and how that will impact current readiness councils and how that will build upon and hopefully create a better, more cohesive system, I guess?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that question. So I think the state had great, and I think it was under Speaker Ritter's leadership, that they designed school readiness to be informed locally, because every community is different and the councils have parents, superintendent, mayor, family resource centers, a mix of folks in the town to make decisions about early childhood in the community. And over the years, some towns also have an early childhood collaborative, but in most cases they've combined, where you have some philanthropy and OEC funding to support staffing and governance. And the responsibility of that council is both to hire a liaison that works with OEC to make sure the funds get to the programs and the programs are following the rules. And this bill proposes to give additional funding because the larger districts, it's capped. It's right now it's 5% of the total grant, only up to basically $100,000. So that if you're Hartford or New Haven, you have thousands of children in school readiness and you don't have enough money to administer. This proposes doubling that for the larger communities where the cap is 200,000 instead of 100, which more fully covers the cost of a staff person, plus the kind of consultants you need for professional development and monitoring, et cetera. So the idea with the councils, we felt like that was some of the best of the current system, that the RFP would be informed by those local governance councils, and they would continue to have the role of doing a needs assessment and also sending a plan to the OEC around what's needed in that community for early childhood.
Thank you, Commissioner. Senator McCrory.
Good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Senator.
Quick question. You talked about changing the ratios
Mhm.
for children between the ages 2 to 4 from 1 to 10 and 1 to 15. Currently at 1 to 10. What are other states doing in regards to that? What does the research say around?
We can get that information to the committee as well. 1 to 15, and this is for children over 5, because this is for school age children. It goes to 1 to 15. That is probably a little bit below the national average. Some are higher, some are lower, but it's pretty close to the average, and it's in keeping with the NAEYC accreditation guidelines. We've just held steady at 1 to 10 forever. And on the toddlers going to 1 to 4, that's the NAEYC accreditation is 1 to 6 for 2-year-olds. So this is still slightly better than accreditation standards, and it's slightly below the national average. We were one of only 2 states that had 1 to 4 for 2-year-olds.
Thank you. The other question is, we made legislation change last year where we modified the age of kids can attend kindergarten, which is going to be a huge impact on our children who are 4-year-olds. My question is, with all the blue ribbon work we've done together, there's going to be a lot of children that's going to need a place to be at 4-year-old. Do we have the capacity currently to take and absorb, if possible, if needed, because this might happen, continuing what this waiver situation is like, to actually have the capacity to take in a number of children currently where we are?
Statewide, we may have capacity, but the issue is in certain communities, there is capacity and in other communities, there is not. So it's not like placed all in the right space. Governor Lamont has been clear to us to maximize the use of school readiness spaces. For example, many cities still have openings in school readiness. The legislature gave us funding. We're planning parent ambassador outreach in the highest need communities to let families know about the openings, because sometimes there are openings, but getting families to enroll their children, sometimes it's transportation, sometimes it's the hours, sometimes it's the culture. So we're going to work super hard to find the children. But there are definitely programs and parents who are scrambling to figure out what they're going to do this year. But we're working in good faith to try to open up access as much as we can in as many places as we can, and to communicate to families where those openings are.
Yeah, I thank you. I mean, we did something, and there's a lot of conversation about, well, did we act too fast? Should we have pushed the start date a year back? All those conversations are being had right now. So that's what I'm asking you. If something was to happen, do we have the capacity to handle this influx of children? I thank you for your response.
Thank you.
Representative McCarty. Representative McCarty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and good morning, Commissioner.
Good morning.
Thank you for your testimony. I'd just like to go back for a moment to the 3 existing funding sources and
Sure.
streamlining those sources. Could you just elaborate a little more on
Yeah.
how you think that will be more efficient, and then I'll go to my next.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, right now there are classrooms across the state where in the same classroom, you have children funded from 3 different funding streams. So that means that program has to report to us on 3 different programs, and parents don't know if do I qualify for school readiness? Do I qualify for Care for Kids? Do I qualify for Head Start? It gets super complicated for parents to figure out what they can access. So it would reduce the administrative burdens on programs. If they were all dealing with Early Start Connecticut, it would really help us with data collection to know, the reporting becomes much easier. And this setup has communities doing local needs assessments, so we'll know what's needed as we plan the system going forward. But the 3 programs are child daycare, which is a contract-based system, school readiness, which is a grant-based system, and Head Start state supplement. So it's like extending the Head Start day, which is sort of a special, I want to say, is that a contract or a grant? It's a grant program. So that's a grant program. All different, sort of each of them with their own requirements. And Genesis, they all started differently, but they're all ultimately providing childcare for children in Connecticut.
And if I may just continue on that, and so you're asking for 3 new positions to be able to accomplish this work.
Yes.
If you'd like to talk a little
Yes.
bit about
Yeah.
those descriptions.
That's a great question. So currently, school readiness, and this is a little wonky, so forgive me, but that's a grant program. So the dollars go up into the State Department of Ed's EGMS system, their grant management system, and then the towns pull those dollars down, and then the towns pay the programs. The challenge there is for really large cities where they need town council approval and to go through complicated, business departments, it can take 3 or 4 months for programs to get paid. So during the Blue Ribbon Panel process, we heard that the state-funded programs that get paid by contracts, paid directly from OEC, are more stable, and they're not worrying about getting paid. They get paid on time. Maybe they'll wait a month or 6 weeks, but they're not waiting 3 and 4 months to get paid. So we're talking about moving the whole system to a contract-based systems where programs are paid directly and upfront and by classrooms. We heard from early childhood programs that this would help even without more money, just that would help stabilize them. So we need those positions because contracts are more complicated than just putting the money in a grant system and having the towns pull it down.
Right. And thank you for that.
Yep.
And, as we do this work, we've talked about maintaining the quality of the program. So give you the opportunity to just say that none of this should impact the accreditation or the quality of the existing programs. Would you just speak to that
Yeah.
for one moment?
We will have the same accreditation requirements, and I'd say we will take it up a step because programs have 3 years to get accredited. They can keep their funding for 3 years while they are in the process. OEC has launched Elevate, which again, we're happy to send information to committee members, which is a quality improvement system where programs first submit a program plan for how they're going to get accredited, and that's approved. And parents very soon will be able to go to 211, and when they seek out a childcare program, it will say whether the program is simply licensed or if it has an approved program plan or if it's accredited. So there are 3 levels that will all be very apparent in any search, and programs will have stickers on their window, so that what we hope to do with Early Start is give programs a year to get an approved program plan to show how they're going to get accredited. So it would add one other layer of quality, but at the same time, you'll see that the budget has money for programs to develop coaches who can support quality, because we heard from directors that they're so busy and they're with the staffing shortage, they don't have as much time as they'd like to be able to mentor the teachers and support their practice. So there are grants also in the budget for coaching to support programs, both, and that's not just state funded programs, that's any program that wants to take part can apply for a coaching grant as well.
Thank you for that. And if I may just go for one moment over to your legislative
Yep.
proposals for your agency and to allow you to speak about how you believe the services for the birth to 3 will be improved by allowing those services to be done right on site. If you can just speak to that for a moment.
Yeah, we just want to say, if you have a child that has special education needs in your licensed program, you have to let the birth to 3 specialist in to provide the services that child needs. So I think it's not a large population. Most programs let birth to 3 providers in, but definitely there were a few cases over the past year where I've had to get involved and call and encourage it. We just think the child has a right to these services, and if you're a licensed program, you have to let us in.
And if I may, for personal privilege, just thank you, Commissioner, for all of the work that you've done over these years. And you're always willing to listen and to talk about ratios, talk about flexibility and in the program. So I just wanted to recognize you publicly for that work. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative.
Representative Zokis.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning.
Good morning.
Nice to see you. Thank you
You
for
too.
coming in.
Mhm.
I just had a question to follow up on Senator McCrory with kids coming in earlier now. So I was just with Waterbury
Mhm.
Board of Education, and they don't have the seats. They don't have the capacity for these kids. What will happen?
Well, I think I mentioned, there's some communities that have space and
Mhm.
others don't. The
Mhm.
cities that are growing have the biggest challenge, and I believe the city of Waterbury is growing in population. We will work hard to make sure those children, as many as possible, have access to school readiness spaces, I think, and child daycare spaces. I think one of the things which we're trying to encourage programs is please still take children at 2 years and 9 months. That's when the children can start preschool at that age. But I think what'll probably happen is that programs will prioritize children who are older and need access. I know there are a lot of programs. I know we've had requests for licenses for extra classrooms to open 5-year-old classrooms. I think the challenge is the timing. And probably that's what you heard from Waterbury.
I've heard it from a few
Yeah.
places. Timing is an issue. They literally don't have space. I
Mhm.
mean, they just cannot
Right.
take any more. So I'm not sure what is going to happen there, or if anything is going to happen with the timing. I mean, eventually it will still happen, but just a little time, because it's not a matter of I don't want to, or it's just there is no seat for these kids to sit in. And could you just go back when you were talking with our ranking member about, and I apologize, I missed it, about places that are caring for kids, the licenses, but y'all should come in. Could you just reiterate what you were
About
saying?
birth to 3?
Yes.
what I'm saying is what we're asking for in our bill is to require programs who are licensed to permit birth to three professionals to come in to provide physical therapy, speech therapy, whatever the child, whatever in the child's special. We have an IFSP when they're 3 and under. It's an IEP here, but that if a child has an identified special education need, that the program needs to let the birth to three professionals in to provide the services.
So there are places that have these children that need this help that don't allow.
It's rare and it's new since COVID, but it does happen.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Representative Roberts.
Good morning, Commissioner, or
Hi,
afternoon.
Representative.
Oh, no, morning. Thank you so much for, thank you so much for being here. I just want a little bit of clarification, with the 3 positions. So I know, well, I represent Norwalk, so we got a couple of, early childhood, daycares and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So meeting with them, they did, discuss with me about, the Care for Kids situation and them waiting for payment. And if that slot could have opened up for little Joey or Mike, that would basically be for them because they're not getting paid on time.
Yeah.
So, it's in a sense of we want to have an open slot, but we still got to pay people. And now we're kind of like leaving the kid behind and not having access for another kid. So I just want to make some clarification on if these 3 positions come in, is it going to come through that office, good faith?
Yep.
Everything will be clarified
Yep.
in a sense.
Representative, you're hitting on what is a big problem right now in our system that's not working as we would like. So the 3 positions are about the state funded programs. The Care for Kids is often a part of state funded programs where children may be also on Care for Kids, but Care for Kids can go to any center, private or public. And you're hearing about this problem in Norwalk. And I've been hearing, I just resolved a case this morning with a provider that was having challenges. We have authorized, I believe, 16 additional positions. I'm looking. 14 additional positions to be hired at United Way. United Way processes these for us. We have shifted funds to add staffing. The wait is unacceptable right now. I was saying inappropriate. So there's a 2-month waiting list, but then it can take 6 weeks just to get on the waiting list. And if you're a parent who needs a job, you can't afford to pay for childcare for 6 weeks while this process is going on. Because once you're on the waiting list, the payments will go back to when you applied, but until you're in the system, the payments don't go back to cover. And so this is a real access issue, and we're working with United Way. We have this seems to happen, and we're working on looking at their processes to make sure every year there seems to be a backlog that hits. This backlog hit because we emptied the waiting list in the fall. We said we have the funds to take everyone off the waiting list. And then all those applications had to be processed. Meanwhile, this backlog was developing while all the waiting list was being unacceptable. We need to fix it and make it work. And we're hoping these 14 positions plus overtime and weekends will help. The backlog is anticipated to be done by the late spring, but that's too long. So we're looking at other options for clearing the backlog.
Thank you so much, Commissioner.
Yeah.
Online, we have Representative Comey.
Hi, Representative.
Hello, thank you, Commissioner, for your testimony. You mentioned in Section 8, I believe it was, the School Readiness Council. Is that what the Section 8 is referring to as far as the Governance Council? And if a community doesn't have a School Readiness Council, what does that look like, number one? And as you know, I mean, here in my community, I actually sit on the School Readiness Council, and it is a group of volunteer folks, except for the liaison, of course. And you want the council to, my understanding, is to create a community needs assessment, which we do sort of a bit, but it sounds like a plan. How far out is that plan going to go, and what type of work is going to be associated with that?
Yeah, Representative, it's a really great question, and I'm happy to go into more detail. I'll go high level, and then if you want more detail, I'll come back to it. So the plan is, and you'll see the additional $3.6 million in the budget. For this coming year, there's funding to add school readiness councils in communities that have, there are communities with state-funded centers that do not currently have school readiness councils if they didn't have school readiness funding, to help communities start school readiness council, provide technical assistance to existing school readiness councils, and increase the amount of funding. So I believe you're in Brantford, Representative. So right now, Brantford's capped at 5% of the total appropriations, or a max of $100,000. This bill proposes to go to 10% of the appropriation for the council and administration, and up to $200,000. But I don't think Brantford would get near the 200,000. I think they'd be much closer to the 10%. And then if communities kick in, the state will match to enhance that amount for the larger communities. So the idea is to build on what exists with the School Readiness Council, but provide more technical assistance and support and funding for staff to have a more robust local decision-making process.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Representative Weedlander.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you,
Representative.
Commissioner, for being here.
Sure.
I wanted just to touch on something that Senator McCrory and Representative Zopkis mentioned, and look at it from a slightly different view. If we are looking at the potential of, through this bill proposal, of increasing slots by up to 1,600 seats, and then we are looking for Care for Kids specifically.
Mhm.
And then we are looking at the potential of adding a third more of students entering or needing childcare if the current implementation of the kindergarten start age holds where it is. I know that we are lacking in seats. I know that we are also lacking in staffing. And with the change in the ratio for certain classrooms, is that change enough to address the influx of students that we're going to be getting? Or is this something that we need to be paying attention to as well? The increased need for qualified staff to make sure that we're keeping up the high quality care that our children deserve.
Well, I think in general, this legislature has been committed to trying to increase access to early childhood to get to the point where we have universal access to preschool. And in Connecticut, that's always meant a mixed model of private providers and public schools. Public schools actually provide more than half of the preschool spaces right now in the state, just because of the special ed requirement, et cetera. So certainly the concerns that I voiced last year about this bill were around making sure we had a plan for access to preschool for those who couldn't access it. And at our agency, we're doing everything we can. We've been collaborating with SDE to maximize the use of existing spaces. We do have a workforce shortage. There's no doubt the wages are the lowest of any profession. And so that impacts classrooms, even if there's capacity. This proposes some changes in the qualified staff member that would ultimately help with some of those workforce challenges. And we also have 8 early childhood pipeline programs around the state. I went to a graduation last week in Bridgeport that was amazing, that are getting hundreds and hundreds of more qualified, mostly teacher assistants. But the problem is both teachers and teacher assistants out there for programs. What you're dealing with at the legislature is a system that is 70% private. So, it's not all in your control. And so I think the state's done a great job with school readiness and child daycare, more than almost any other state, to also have a state-funded system that serves low-income children and also middle-income children in a mixed model. So it's a hard one. It's a hard one.
Any other questions? Representative McCarty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, for the second time. Commissioner, before you go, could you just talk for a bit? And I was so pleased to see the TRICARE
Mhm.
share model and recognize the business industry for getting
Mhm.
involved and helping us
Yeah.
solve the issues that we have with childcare. And it mentioned in the testimony, 250 slots.
Yeah.
Have been determined. Do you have any additional information about that? I'm pleased to see it in
Yeah.
Eastern Connecticut, but I'm not too familiar.
We can get more details to committee members. I hope Maggie's taking notes on all these things I say we're getting to committee members. We will get committee members more information, but the idea is to share the costs. It's still, childcare is very expensive, so Electric Boat has committed to $500,000 to, the state has committed to 1.8 million, so almost a third of that Electric Boat is saying we'll match and parents can do their share. And altogether, for a full year of full day childcare, it would get to about 250 children, which, then you need the supply to take those children in Eastern Connecticut, which is a problem we're also working on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, looks like you are all
Great.
set, Commissioner. Just
All right.
want to say thank you again.
Thank you.
I think it is great that we have such a focus on education, whether that be early childhood, K-12, higher ed, and finally hoping to move kind of everybody in the direction of really prioritizing education and understanding that this is the foundation for quite literally everything that makes the Connecticut function, our country function, and what it's all built upon. So
Yeah.
thank you for
I
that.
can't agree more. We're so lucky in Connecticut to have the kind of commitment we have on this committee and across the state to high quality education.
And
Thank
for
you.
members, we will likely see some additional proposals that has to do with incentivizing some of our local boards of educations for possibly being able to build out and include some of these additional programs into their respective LEAs. So take a look for that. Thank you. Next up, we have Commissioner Russell Tucker, State Department of Education. Good morning still. The floor is yours.
Good morning. I know Senator McCrory just left the room, but Representative Curry, Senator Berthel was also out, Representative McCarty, and members of the Education Committee. I'm Charlene Russell Tucker, Commissioner of the Department of Education. I'm pleased to have an opportunity to provide you with testimony today regarding the department's agency bill, HB 5180, and certainly want to thank the committee leadership for raising it for us. Section 1 makes modification to the Seal of Biliteracy statute to broaden access. Section 2 pertains to adult education high school credit diploma requirements and will align the number of credits needed with that of the current high school graduation requirements. Sections 3 and 4 authorize Goodwin University magnet schools to charge tuition to local boards of education for resident students enrolled in interdistrict magnet school operated by Goodwin. Sections 5 and 6 extend the date for compliance with magnet enrollment standards. I'd ask that you refer to my written testimony for a specific date extension that was inadvertently left out of the bill. Section 7 pertains to farm to school field trips and more accurately reflects the department's current role in coordinating field trips to farms and in-school presentations by farmers. In sections 8 through 13 contains revisions to definitions for the delivery of transition services to ensure consistency with state and federal regulations. We would like to specifically request 3 changes to the bill as drafted that are also outlined specifically in my written testimony. With that, I want to thank the committee again for raising the bill on the department's behalf. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. I also have members of my team here if we want to get into major details. Thank you, Representative.
Excellent. And I will provide the same comments to you that we did to Commissioner Bai, and thank you for your continued work in prioritizing education and making sure that those in positions of power are attempting to do the same. With respect to the special education and transition services, can you just explain a little bit more about why the shift away? I know this is part of the conversation from last year's 5001 speakers bill. I was just trying to get a better handle on that.
Certainly, thank you. Thank you very much. So last year we did a great job, I think, together in working on transition services And we wanted to make sure that doing that for that bill, when it was passed, we want to make sure that definitions are aligned with federal IDEA regulations and definitions. So that's a part of what we're doing here, some technical fix. But we also wanted to, what we received last year was also for us to hire a transition coordinator at the department. And so we want to make sure that that person has the leadership role for coordinating all the other entities and liaisons for other agencies that are doing this work, including our State Education Resource Center, CERC, that's here as well. And so we want to make sure that the leadership is at the agency for the transition services to make sure that that coordination is across the system, across the board, and efficient.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Representative McCarty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Just if I may go back to the biliteracy seal, I'm so pleased to see that. And could you have any idea how many students avail themselves? How do we have figures on how many of our students are actually getting the biliteracy seal? And then perhaps going forward, it'd be interesting to know, because those students, how they're entering, whether when they enter the workforce or go into different jobs, does that give them an advantage? And do we have any data on that at all?
Thank you, Representative McCarty. We're really pleased having implemented the seal of biliteracy since 2017, 2018, and that is not a mandate. So we're working with districts to make sure that they offer this to students. I think since we've started, we've issued over 1,100 diplomas with the seal of biliteracy, and all told, we have certainly over 100 districts participating. We do have an infographic that we can also send to you with that information, where we're checking to see the numbers of participating districts, which is growing year over year. The number are students who are multilingual learners who are getting the seal as well. And so we're continuing to track that. Your question is well placed. We really believe this is a benefit to our students to be able to acknowledge their language assets that they bring. And so we'll continue to take a look at that, and we'll share the information that we currently have with this committee.
Thank you. That was very helpful. And I know American Sign Language is also used for
Yes.
that purpose as well, I believe.
Yeah.
On the adult education requirements, that's just to put the statute in alignment with adult ed, that they're already currently using the 25. They also have to adhere to the 25 credits, just as our the traditional schools. But so this is just really putting the statute in alignment. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. We want to make sure that there's alignment. And so this is the Adult High School Credit Diploma Program initiative that the diplomas are issued by the LEA or RESC. So we want to make sure that there is alignment. It is our understanding that that is what providers are doing right now, but the statute just have not caught up. So we want to make sure we change it from the 20 to the 25.
Right. That's what I thought. Okay. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I don't see any questions online, and so I will thank you, Commissioner, for your time today. I'm sure we will see you again at another future public hearing. We look forward to the certification work coming forward and having that discussion as well. So enjoy the rest of
Absolutely.
your day.
And thank you all for all your support.
Next up, we have Dr. Ellen Solik from the CTEC system. Morning. Oh, just hit your button. Dr. Solik, hit the button on there. There you go.
Sorry, we'll do that again. Good morning, Representative Curry, Representative McCarty, and members of the Education Committee. It is truly an honor to have a chance this morning to meet with all of you. We are here also in representation of
And
proposed
actually,
bill.
Dr. Solik, we'll let people exit just so we're not all not focused. And Emmett can sit back down. All right, floor is yours.
Thank you, Representative. We are here representing proposed bill 153. The overall focus of that proposed language is to add clarity to existing legislative language around topics related to special education and other education-related items. And I am here this morning. It is my honor to have the opportunity to answer any questions you may have on that topic or any other topic. We would be glad to share information for you.
Thank you for that brief opening. It is nice to see you. My apologies. Can you talk a little bit more? I know we made legislative changes in the last couple of years with respect to special education, ensuring equal access within our tech school systems. And I have the belief that the proposal is kind of addressing some of these concerns. Can you talk a little bit about how that has been going, the implementation, the needs? I know we have an appropriations and ask for a number of special education teachers to ensure that students are receiving the services that they need. So maybe just a little brief overview of some of that might be nice.
Absolutely. Thank you for that question, Representative. We, in fact, have made great strides in terms of providing adequate staffing and more than adequate access, equal access for students with special needs to our programs at CTEX. Currently, we have received approximately $6.5 million of extra support funding in special education, which will help to provide additional special education staffing support to our 17 existing high school programs, as well as Bristol Technical High School and the Aerotech programming. We do service students, as the committee is aware, in grades 9 through 12. We service students from across the state of Connecticut. We are located in every corner and crack and crevice in Connecticut, and we strive to meet the needs of special education students to the very best of our ability. The challenge, if there is one for us going forward, is unlike local education agencies who also offer special education services, we are a specialty area in terms of offering up to 31 different trade opportunities for students, both special education students and regular education students. And in doing so, not only do we have to make sure that we are meeting their educational needs at all times, but we also have in many of our trades a safety component that we want to ensure that students who access our trades through special education have the staffing support necessary in those trade shops to ensure that they remain safe, as well as the rest of the students and the instructor in the classroom. And we're making great strides along those lines. The governor's additional support and funding given to us is geared exactly toward that, so that we can specialize services to even more of an extent in those trade shop classrooms. In addition to that, we have definitely bolstered the number of paraprofessionals available to our special education students and staff in all 17 school sites. We intend to extend those numbers even further in the years to come. The average special education percentage of enrollment across Connecticut is 17% total, and we are at that same number, which in my estimation is an accomplishment, a huge accomplishment for CTEX. As I said earlier, we offer a very complex curriculum of academic required offerings as well as trades. And so to be able to educate students with special needs with equal access to those trade opportunities with existing funding and existing staffing is nothing short of amazing, and a real testament to the faculty that exists in our special education department. So we definitely are working on expanding services and expanding access to specialized needs for our special services students.
Thank you for that. Representative McCarty.
Thank you for your question. Thank you and welcome to the committee. I just looked at section 4 of the bill. How's the tech system? You've been able to contract with RESCs in the past, have you not? And this is just solidifying that. Could you just clarify that a little bit? And I think that's particularly important as we know the rest do such a great job in looking at our special ed services and other areas. So if you would like to just talk about that a little bit.
Thank you for that, Representative McCartney. And yes, we do currently contract with CREC and other RESCs throughout the state to provide services and staffing support actually for our special needs students. In addition to that, we are very hopeful that we can absorb some of that requirement going forward through CTEX and through direct staffing through the state and through CTEX, in addition to whatever required contracted staffing we may have. Those contracted staffing items are usually typically very specialized needs that must be met. And the RESCs have been hugely helpful to us in doing that and providing those staffing services, especially in areas of shortage, as we all have experienced across the state. So we do appreciate the RESC support that we have been able to garner, but the hope is that we can absorb many of those staffing requirements over time and begin to staff directly through CTEX in terms of meeting our special education needs going forward.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Representative Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Dr. Sullivan, good afternoon. Thank you,
afternoon.
and thank you for all that you're doing for the state of Connecticut. We certainly need more and more students going into the trades in our state. I have one question on Section 5, and it's very simple. Section 5, current language says that the technical education career system shall offer full-time comprehensive education. We're adding technical high schools, and may offer part-time evening and programs, and we're changing may to shall. So oftentimes when agencies come here, may is like what they're hoping for, that there's statutory enabling language, but now we're switching, you already can, now we're saying you have to. Is there a fiscal concern there for us?
No, sir, there is not. Thank you for that question, Representative. There really is a change in the enrollment for us. We have now expanded our adult education programming, which is the programming you speak of. And we offer it at all 17 school sites. We have expanded to approximately 5,000 participants. We offer that every single day from anytime after 2 o'clock onward. So the substitution of shall simply indicates that that's a program that we're committed to full-time, and that there's no ambiguity about whether we would or would not offer such programming. We intend to actually expand those opportunities going forward.
So if this were to pass today, tomorrow, the system looks exactly as it does, essentially.
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Representative Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here. Just a couple quick questions, not specific to any section. But when we talk about special education specifically, is there a special education director in every school? As we know, this is not like any other district, if you will, right? The schools are separated out in different parts of our state. So do you have a special education director in every school, or is there one for the district as a whole and then other folks throughout the district in each school? Could you elaborate on what that looks like?
Absolutely, Representative Cook. Thank you. Yes, we do. We have a special education director. She serves at the central office. She is a centralized director. She provides leadership to all 17 school sites. In addition to that, we have special education supervisors who oversee in each quadrant of the state programming. In addition to that, we also have special education support service providers, paraprofessionals, full-time and part-time teaching staff, and education consultants who also work closely with our director and supervisors to support the needs of students. So we have a wonderful infrastructure in terms of leadership around special education at CTEX.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I am also excited to hear about the safety mechanisms that are in the trade component of that. That's been an issue and a hurdle in this very room for many, many years, ensuring that everybody has an equal opportunity, but how do we do that safely? And Mr. Chairman, my final question is, I hear you talk about dollars and cents. And that 6.5 million in extra funding for supports.
It is extra funding that we have requested for additional staffing needs in special education specific to the ARP ESSER grant fund, which is now, as we all regretfully know, is going away. And a majority of our paraprofessional staffing is now funded under that current grant. We need to have a way to effectively supplant that funding so that, and in fact, replace that funding so that we don't lose the key staffing that we have managed to build to this point. That staffing, or that 6.5 million will go specifically to special education paraprofessionals and teachers and other support services, behavioral analysts, those kinds of specific supports.
And thank you for that. I know that one of the biggest fears that we had around this very desk, big, large desk, is that you take the ARPA dollars and invest in something, and then we weren't able to sustain that. That is the fear that I have. And so I'm not sure how we look going forward, but as we move forward, Mr. Chairman, and we look at how we dissect those dollars and cents, that's a huge component to this conversation. So thank you. Thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you.
Well, it's great to see the state agency coming forward, looking to fill the hole that was created with federal dollars. And we would hope the same would be done the same for public education throughout the state of Connecticut. Thank you, Representative Cook. Senator Seminara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Soldnick, for coming and testifying. And thank you for all that you're doing to make the system accessible for everybody, especially those with disabilities. My question is around, I hear you talking about staffing, and obviously that would be necessary for those with disabilities to have those supports in place. I'm wondering if there is any discussion or how assistive technology is playing a role, if any, in assisting these students in pursuing their career goals.
Thank you for that question, Senator. And yes, we are utilizing assistive technology more and more in CTEX classrooms, not only for our special education students, but also our regular education students. As we progress, obviously through the discovery world of AI, in pursuit of robotics programming, which we are now looking at adding to our 31 trade offerings, and other avenues of software assistive learning support systems for special education students. We make use of whatever we possibly can, whatever we can possibly afford to bring in. We absolutely value the input that our sending districts have along the lines of supports that are already successful and in place for special education students that may travel with those students to CTEX as they adopt both academic programming and trade offerings as well. So the short answer is yes, we do utilize an awful lot of intuitive, adaptive software systems and other kinds of manipulatives and support systems through technology for our students.
And just piggybacking on Representative Cook, are any of those being used towards safety? Is any assistive technology being used towards safety?
Absolutely. So for example, if we look at a construction trade offering or an electrical trade offering where ladder climbing may be a requirement for students who study either one of those trades. Clearly, we have students who are physically unable to accomplish that task or need to adapt to accomplish that task. So absolutely, we do. We have students who are operating machinery in those trade classrooms. We have students who are operating, in fact, other kinds of equipment that need much adaptation, so that, and it could be also instructional adaptation with utilizing software so that they gradually understand what the manipulative functions are of such a piece of machinery, let's say, so that they can gradually begin to utilize that machinery, even at first in limited capacity, but one that meets their needs and adapts to their needs in a safe and secure way. I spoke also earlier about making sure that we have staffing available in those trade classrooms to help support our special needs students as well, to add to that component of safety. And in my humble estimation as a 31-year educator, I think that is absolutely key for our students, more often than not, to go into a trade classroom and not have that additional support can pose risk to them, but it also can pose risk to other students in those classrooms, as well as the instructor in those classrooms, who may not realize the full need and the full capacity, other than adaptive technologies that are already in place, what that student needs. Whereas a trained, certified, either paraprofessional and or teacher in that classroom, in addition to the instructor, would certainly have a better sense of how to bring that student forward, meet the student's needs, and keep everyone safe. So all those pieces we're looking at implementing. We've implemented many of those already, but with 17 high school sites, you can imagine the number of trade classrooms that are still requiring those adaptive, individualized people to come in and aid in instruction.
Thank you for that comprehensive answer. And thank you so much again for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Representative Jenga.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony. You mentioned paraprofessionals. Can you tell us in your system how many paraprofessionals you've added and how they're utilized? What's the strategy in utilizing paraprofessionals?
Absolutely, Representative. Paraprofessionals to CTEX is a relatively new component. When I arrived at CSEX in 2021, and we were all just beginning to come off of COVID, they were still building the ship, if you will, and we were trying to implement paraprofessional staffing that would best support the needs of special education and our 504 students as well. So it is still a work in progress. Those paraprofessionals are trained to meet the needs of special ed students in a variety of ways. For example, we talked about the adaptive assistive technology that paraprofessionals provide extra support individually to students or students in small groups. They may help in the trade classrooms to work on a particular project or component of a project that a group of students is working on. Helps and supports them, making sure they have the right materials and equipment and supplies to accomplish the task at hand. Supports the instructor and also the academic teacher or teachers in that classroom if there are needs that they may have to better meet the needs of students going forward. So paraprofessionals in a nutshell are really a support network that provides both direct assistance to students, but also assistance and supports to the instructors and teachers as well. We also utilize those paraprofessionals we certainly utilize them in regular academic settings and trade settings, but we also use them and their skill sets for library media services and other laboratory kinds of settings, learning settings that some of our high schools, many of our high schools have now. So it's a work in progress. They are the support network. They're kind of if you looked at the marching band, they're the bass drum. They're the one that really helps the band march forward in terms of meeting specific needs for specific students who are special needs students.
Thank you. And roughly, would you know how many you've added in the system?
I'm sorry, sir, could you repeat the question? It was difficult to hear.
I was asking the number of paras you have added under this strategy.
You can always get that back to the committee if you'd like.
Okay. We don't have that for you today. I'd be happy to get that for you. Okay. Would you like that per school or in total for CTEX?
Any way you give it to me.
Okay, we'll give it to you both ways.
You know, but as a former teacher who utilized paras in very different ways, they were wonderful support. They also have 2 levels of paras. And I know that a para had an ability to go get some additional education and receive a certification. I bring that up because it's so important in the system and it's very economical and it's also sometimes underused. Thank you.
Absolutely. If I may add to that, the importance that the State Department of Education approached paraprofessional training, it certainly currently and even in years past has been hugely helpful to us because these paras come in now and they are fully trained and ready to hit the ground running. And so we greatly appreciate the standards and the bar that's been set with the State Department of Education around providing para training. And that's ongoing, which is just wonderful. It benefits students and staff greatly. So thank you for that.
Just to give you an example, as a teacher, I was always concerned about a substitute. And we had to have substitutes. But as long as I had a paraprofessional in the room, I never had any kind of qualms about the students and what they were going to learn that day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Representative. I don't see any questions online. Just a last comment to kind of tie things up with respect to the paras and the talks around special education. I hope that the tech school system can emerge as a true leader in ensuring that paraprofessionals and educators are used to the best of their ability for respective PPTs to ensure that the best information is at those tables, and so the students are receiving the services that they need. Thank you so much, Dr. Sully.
Absolutely. Thank you, Representative Curry. Thank you, members of the committee.
All right, we will move into the public portion of our hearing. First up, we have Gail Nolan.
Good afternoon.
Oh, Gail Nolan online. Hi.
Hi, sorry about that. So I'd like to wish you a happy afternoon. Representative Curry, Senator McCrory, and Representative Gibson, I think, is online, and all the members of the Education Committee. I'm Gail Nolan of Bloomfield, Connecticut. I want to thank you for all your work for the state and its children and families. I'm here today regarding the HB 5051, an act establishing Early Start Connecticut. I'm in support of establishing Early Start Connecticut, which is a combination of the best parts of school readiness, child daycare, and state Head Start. Providers and families need a more simplified system that'll give them more time to do the work of educating and caring for children. There's been a lot of thought and input through the Blue Ribbon Panel, and the staff at the Office of Early Childhood. Members of the Blue Ribbon Panel have listened to community and families and the staff and came up with a plan that really is an improvement to the system in many ways that'll benefit many families, programs, and communities. The amount in the budget is not enough, but it's at least a start to start improving the early learning in Connecticut. It's important for all school systems that children attend early learning, but it shouldn't come at the expense of the K through 12 fundings. Families need early learning and childcare to be able to work and help educate their children. And starting as early as possible is important, will benefit all our communities. I'm the director of a family resource center. I'm president of the Connecticut Family Resource Center Alliance. I'm a school readiness and child daycare program liaison and part of our local early childhood council in Bloomfield. So I just want to reiterate, as Commissioner Bai had said, that these programs all work collaboratively in my community and across the state. We're able to flex to the needs of our communities, and this is going to make it even better. We all support families and children raising children, and parents need these supports to help them find resources for housing, food, diapers, childcare, anything that families are looking for so that they can educate their children in the best way possible. So just in support of this for families and early childhood, because that's the future of our state. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. I do not see any questions. Enjoy the rest of your day. Next up, we have Kate Diaz, CEA. Pardon the noise. We got to keep Kate to 3 minutes, folks. Just hit the button.
Good afternoon, Education Committee members. I am very pleased to be here today in support of both my members who are early child care workers, as well as our friends and peers who do the work that is so important to setting our students off on the right foot. What we know is that how children enter school tremendously impacts their entire experience. So I am a high school math teacher. My sister, little known fact, is a preschool teacher. That was her origin before she became an EL teacher. And we often used to discuss the fact that she could make predictions about her students in preschool and what their high school experience might look like. Because the starting point matters. That investment, that time, that engagement matters. You all know this. You voted in favor of play-based learning, recognizing the importance of all of that pedagogy and developing our children in a positive, meaningful way. But we can't do it on the cheap. And we can't do it by stealing from one group of students to give to another. So I'm here today to ask you, to really implore you to uphold the offerings from the Blue Ribbon Commission, to give our early childhood educators the respect that they deserve. It's not lost on me that we often look to minimize the impact, defray the costs around employers that really are dealing with women-based professions. And I think we have to keep in mind that if we were sitting here talking about early engineering practices or early medical practices, we might be having a different conversation, but we're not. We're talking about early childhood and the care that we want to offer these children. So we need to keep in mind that if we want those children to become the lawyers, the doctors, the teachers, the engineers of the future, we need to make this early investment. I'm excited to see the work that is going on. I'm excited to partner and support my colleagues and friends that are really embedded in doing the work. And I ask you all to continue to support it, to make the investment, to really fight for these children and fight for these opportunities. They will pay extraordinary dividends in the future going forward. And I believe in the economic value of this as well, because people can't work if they're worried about their children. So let's be partners with this and make sure that we are helping our workers be able to be quality workers, be focused, be available. We can't do that if they're spending a lot of time worried about their children or whether or not they even have access to childcare. So I thank you so much for this continued effort. I hope that you see the teachers as partners in this because we believe strongly in these foundational efforts. Thank you, and I hope that we have a really productive session and do amazing things.
Thank you, Kate. Right under your 3 minutes. Any questions from members? Representative McCarty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And it's really just a comment. I wanted to recognize you and CEA for coming out to support early childhood learning and to really remind us of the impact that such foundational, as you said, has on later learning as they come through school. But I think we would all agree that it's a continuum, and we've made that loud and clear. So I just wanted to recognize you for taking the time. I don't think you put in because you speak so well right off the cuff, but I didn't see any testimony. Am I correct?
We do have testimony.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
Okay, it's just not on.
You'll
there.
get it in line.
All right.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much, Kate. Thank you.
All right, seeing nothing else, thanks, and I'm sure we'll see you in the future.
Absolutely.
Have a good day. Next up, Jay Thomas.
Good afternoon, Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, and distinguished members of the Education Committee. My name is Jay Thomas, and I'm a policy specialist at All Our Kin. All Our Kin is a national nonprofit that trains and supports over 600 licensed home-based childcare providers in Connecticut. These childcare professionals have the capacity to care for more than 3,000 of the state's youngest children, including neighborhoods in New Haven, Bridgeport, and Stamford, and the surrounding communities. Today, I'm offering testimony in response to 5051, an act establishing Early Start CT. All Our Kin is encouraged by the state's efforts and supports the provisions outlined in HB 5051, which focus on streamlining state funding, increasing childcare access for families, and expanding opportunities for professional learning. I'd like to spend my time today addressing the language related to Care for Kids and the establishment of a tri-share childcare matching program. Care for Kids is a critical resource for working families. Therefore, we support a funding increase to raise the subsidy income limit from 60% of the state median income to 65%. This investment will expand access. However, middle income families will continue to struggle affording care. The program, even with the proposed increase in fiscal year 2025, will remain below the maximum income eligibility threshold recommended by the federal government. Additionally, families' ability to access care for kids is stifled by the state's wait list. Connecticut must do more to close the gap between applying for and the issuing of a Care for Kids certificate, because in the interim, both families and educators struggle. The state can address this by creating a streamlined application process that includes presumptive eligibility to ensure qualified families don't have to wait for support. Regarding the establishment of a tri-share childcare matching program, improving access to high-quality, affordable childcare will require commitment and funding from a number of key stakeholders, including members of the business and philanthropic community. It is encouraging that state policymakers and business leaders are making the connection between childcare access, our workforce, and the state economy. Public-private partnerships are an innovative way to address the gaps in the childcare system. However, improving childcare access for Connecticut families will require long-term state investment in addition to buy-in from local business leaders. Connecticut leaders should follow the Blue Ribbon Panel's recommendations and explore long-term options for generating state revenue to raise the funds needed to support family childcare and early childhood education. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you so much for your comments. Seeing no questions, have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Next up is Alex Chavone. Good afternoon.
Hi, good
Alex.
afternoon. Shavoni, it's just got that.
My apologies.
I don't know how you do it. You have a lot to get through. Thank you all for being here. Thank you for the opportunity, Senator McCrory and Representative Curry, and the esteemed members of the Education Committee. I have a prepared statement. I have to say, after listening to Beth, I just want to acknowledge and own that I am that provider that she is talking about in almost every example, except for we do let birth to 3 providers into our program always. But we're a program that has not received our funding for up to 9 months. She said 3 or 4. We've had a 9-month delay at times. So I am fully in support of some of the initiatives that she mentioned. So I'm really here to talk about the childcare system. We know it's broken. Parents pay too much and providers make too little. So I'm asking you that you support HB 5051 and SB 152, as well as the governor's Blue Ribbon Panel recommendations and parents who are affected by the kindergarten start age. The new change, because that is something I am managing every day, all day at this point. So I'm thankful for the governor's attention on early care and education, but it is insufficient at this point. The legislative proposals are one step and an initial way to address these problems that are plaguing our system. I am the executive director of Friends Center for Children in New Haven. We have 300 people on our waiting list. We are a 70% community of color. We use every single subsidy that you can imagine that was mentioned. And I've been doing this for 33 years. I see firsthand how a rich and educational environment really can impact families, children, and their educators. HB 5051 allows families additional access to subsidized programs and support to allow them to thrive. We know it's proven that high quality learning environments for 0 to 5, children age 0 to 5, just is going to put them on a path where they are more likely to succeed in elementary school and beyond. And we've heard from other people today already that when parents cannot secure adequate childcare, they are unable to work. We can bolster Connecticut's economy by unlocking the potential of our workforce through childcare. And to be very specific, a strong, robust birth to 3 Connecticut early childhood system is estimated to bring $1.2 billion into the Connecticut economy, $1.2 billion. But quality care means you need quality educators. And the average Connecticut preschool salary remains stagnant at $29,500. We're the 6th richest state in the country, and we're paying women 98% female, disproportionately women of color, poverty level wages at $29,500. This inadequate compensation makes high vacancy rates, and then families don't have access to care. So SB 152 allows the Office of Early Child to really focus on the child early care apprentice programs. It also includes language to waive application requirements for at-risk families, all these things that would benefit families. And lastly, I wanted to point out that this year, the governor also introduced the Blue Ribbon Panel plan. And I ask that your committee show support for the overall plan. As co-chair of Childcare for Connecticut's Future, which is a statewide childcare coalition, I meet weekly with members to discuss how childcare must be overhauled in our state. The Blue Ribbon Panel recommendations are the beginning of that transformation. It will take time, but the longer we wait, the more we deny access to generations of Connecticut residents. So please act now. It's time to prioritize childcare as a fundamental component of our state's infrastructure. I appreciate your support.
Just wrap up.
Thank you. Yep, that's it.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I don't see any questions in the room or online, so we appreciate your testimony. See you soon. And the individual who signed up for number 8, Rocio Penna, if you can accept the request that came from the clerk so that you can join the room and testify. In the meantime, we'll move on to number 9, Tara Volpe. No, Tara? I see you there. I just need, all right. Hey, I got face and your voice. There you go.
I'm juggling now and in my car.
Hopefully parked.
I'm gonna do my best. I'm very parked. I have pulled over because that is the right thing to do. So I'm going to do my best today. Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, and distinguished members of the Education Committee. My name is Tara Volpe. I previously spent 20 years as a childcare provider and early childhood educator. I'm a supporter of Childcare for Connecticut's Future, which is a statewide coalition of parents, providers, and advocates coming together to fix childcare. I'm testifying in response to HB 5051 and SB 152, as well as the recommendations set by the governor's Blue Ribbon Panel. The current 3-month wait for the Childcare for Kids program is wildly problematic. It leaves providers, many of which were already low-income earners, waiting for pay, and it creates situations where parents are scrambling for care. The streamlining of state funding increases childcare access, expands opportunities for professional learning, and is critical so providers can be paid without delay so that parents can secure care so that they themselves can work. However, more and continued state problem-solving, support, and resources are necessary because problems like the Care for Kids subsidies are riddled with issues. As an early care advocate, I am grateful to see the work being done by the governor and the Office of Early Childhood. These bills are a good beginning, and I look forward to seeing more work done in this area because we all know providers, parents, and children need and deserve a fully functioning childcare system. Programs like Care for Kids are a critical resource for working families. Therefore, I support a funding increase to raise the subsidy income limit from 60% of the state median income to 65%. As families are experiencing higher cost of living expenses, this is only fair. Expanding this access will help middle income families who continue to struggle to afford childcare. Improving access to high quality, affordable childcare will require a long-term commitment and long-term predictable funding and investments. The reality is a vast amount of Connecticut workers get to go to work because providers are taking care of their children. Connecticut doesn't run on coffee, it runs on childcare. The people providing this care, parents and children, all deserve better. Please support HB 5051 and SB 152 and support the Blue Ribbons Panel's recommendations and explore long-term options for generating state revenue to raise funds needed to support family childcare. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. We appreciate your time. Doesn't look like any questions. Enjoy the rest of your drive.
Thank you.
Up, Linda Facto. No? Okay. Paul Emeroni. Oh, he's in the room. Welcome to All Things Education.
Looks like we're on here. Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, Senator Berthel, Representative McCarty, and members of the Education Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to present testimony today. My name is Paul Amarone. I am the Advocacy Outreach Manager at the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, the state's largest business organization representing thousands of member companies, both small and large. I'm here today to testify in support of the governor's proposal, House Bill 5051, an act establishing Early Start CT, specifically the proposals to expand the child care incubator program and implement a tri-share model in New London County. This bill is a significant step forward in addressing the child care educator shortage and child care affordability issue for parents. Lack of child care accessibility and affordability has a worsening impact on the business community, dominantly affecting women in the workforce and costing the state's economy more than $1 billion on an annual basis. CBIA supports the proposed tri-share childcare model in New London County, which will establish an evenly shared cost between the state, participating employers, and participating employees. This model will serve as a blueprint for the rest of the state and has a proven track record of success in other states, such as Michigan, where the 3 regions or 59 counties participating have experienced an 80% increase in employee retention rates. In addition to an increase in employee retention rates, employees across all participating hubs decrease their monthly childcare costs by $464. With 86% of participating employees saying the tri-share program has made childcare more affordable. From an employer perspective, 63% of participating employers believe the program has helped their company retain existing employees. CBIA is also in support of expanding the childcare incubator program to New London County. Childcare deserts, such as those in Eastern Connecticut, are significantly burdened with a lack of options when it comes to childcare centers. This model will help expand the childcare educator pipeline by establishing more community-based childcare incubator centers to help train, educate, and ultimately certify aspiring childcare educators. The current incubator program, notably in New Britain, through the YWCA, has trained and certified 10 aspiring childcare educators in its first year of operation. CBIA also supports the measures of this bill that expedite the timeline for aspiring childcare educators to get certified by slashing the 15-step process to a 3-step process, opening the process to aspiring professionals with bachelor and associate degrees, and consolidating the state's 3 early childhood programs into a single program. In conclusion, CBIA believes this bill will bring more affordability and accessibility to parents throughout the state, ultimately keeping more professionals in the workforce at a time when businesses are struggling to retain employees. Thank you all for the opportunity to present testimony today, and I look forward to any questions today or as a follow-up throughout the progression of this bill.
We appreciate your testimony today. I don't see any questions. I'll just say we appreciate CBIA's partnership around all things education and for adding their voice to the fight for that priority. Yep, Red McCarty's going to ask a question. I would just say also, we hope to see kind of these incubators and tri-share models more attractive around the state. And we know there hasn't really been that level of interest, especially up in our area here. But we look forward to the continued work to see how we can make that happen. Representative McCarty.
Kind of covered what I was going to say, but I just would like to reiterate the gratitude to CBIA for getting involved in this. And as this is a pilot program, we'll continue to monitor and hopefully work to expand that model throughout the state if that's possible going forward. But thank you to CBIA.
Yeah, certainly. Thank you, Representative. And we're happy to have a seat at the table. This is something that's at the top of our members' agenda. So happy to be here and happy to answer any questions in the future as well.
Thanks so much. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Next up is your Bermudez Zimmerman. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Honorable Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, and esteemed members of the Education Committee. My name is Ava Bermudez Zimmerman. I'm here representing Childcare for Connecticut's Future. We are a leading coalition of childcare advocates, parents, and providers coming together to try to overhaul and transform the childcare system. In total, we have close to 7,000 individual members, as well as a multitude of nonprofits and organizations that advocate for early care and education, as well as advocate for changes that do impact the early care system. I'm here in support of HB 5051, as well as SB 152, and also want to bring to the attention of the representatives and senators on this call and the committee that the governor's Blue Ribbon Panel recommendations should also be recognized and supported as a pathway to transforming and a starting point to overhauling the much needed changes that we need in the childcare system. The word that I think comes up in this testimony today is the word hope. And the reason I think of hope is because year after year, and in my decade of advocating for early care and education and working with providers and parents, they come in with such a fresh perspective and expectation of being able to change and really create more funding and support systems for the childcare system. This year is no different. I said it in the press conference that the Education Committee and Jeff Curry, Representative Curry, held, that the child care system feels seen. For the first time in a very long time, legislators like yourselves are paying attention and going above and beyond to really give support systems in order to make those changes that are necessary. More funding for providers, resources, really identifying that the cost is really exorbitant for parents. But these two bills, as well as the governor's Blue Ribbon Panel, 5051, as well as 152, are a step forward in truly trying to tackle some of the difficulties that exist, streamlining the education application for Care for Kids, trying to give support systems for the apprenticeship model that a lot of the child care centers and home-based providers are currently implementing, allowing for access for parents to make it easier to vet for special needs, and ensuring that parents have resources when they're having those difficult conversations of vetting and really identifying the difficulties that their children have in the day-to-day in their early care setting. And as one of our partners, CBIA's bill is the Tri-Share model, trying to find creative solutions to figure out how we can access early care and education in those childcare deserts and really ensure that parents everywhere have a true portal and avenue to get their kids into care. So I know that there's a multitude of different things that we can say in this, but I wanted to make sure that in my written testimony and the additional documents that I'm entering and admitting for you guys to read, that you have a full understanding in the scope and the impact that HB 5051 as well as 152 and the Blue Ribbon Panel's recommendations really have in the early care system. And we really do appreciate you in the consideration of these proposals. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony today. I'm sure we'll be speaking with you more. I see no questions here. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you.
Next up, Merrill Gett. Good afternoon, sir.
I'm out of practice being in person. Yeah. Representative Curry, Representative McCarty, members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to testify. My name is Merrill Gay. I'm the Executive Director of the Connecticut Early Childhood Alliance. For the past 20 years, we have brought together organizations ranging from statewide organizations to little itty bitty childcare programs to work on policy change to improve things for young children. We are here to support SB 152 and the primary focus of HB 5051, which is to merge together the separate programs that we have for early childhood. For decades, our members, many of whom have 2 or sometimes even 3 of those programs funding children in their classrooms, have complained about how hard it is and how bureaucratic and duplicative it is. And so this will finally fix that problem. You know, we think about this was a goal back in 2013 when Governor Malloy launched the Office of Early Childhood. Now we'll finally accomplish this. One of the things that this will also do is to standardize the co-pays between the programs and to finally start paying programs based on classroom rather than per child. And that is finally a recognition that once you have 11 kids in the preschool classroom, you have to have 2 staff. Your cost is almost the same as if you had 20 kids in the classroom, because it's not the crayons that might be costing you money, it's the teacher that costs money. So that is a huge step forward. It also will extend the school readiness councils under a new name called Local Governance Partners to those communities that don't yet have a school readiness council. All of those child development centers around the state that are not in school readiness communities would now also have the support of a local council. So with that said, we are generally supportive of this. There are a few sections which we have some concerns. Those are sections 9, 11, 12, 13, and 18. And I've laid that out in my testimony, but to the extent that I can get through any of them in my time, I will try and do that. Section 9 lowers the staffing credential requirements for the state-funded programs. And many of my members are wildly enthusiastic about that because it has been very difficult to meet those staffing requirements. And those were due to ratchet up in July of next year. So just to finish that thought.
Yeah, well, so why don't you just go ahead and describe
Okay.
your concerns?
So what this does is really treat the symptom, not the cause of the problem. The cause of this problem, the reason why people are not studying early childhood at UConn to go into working in a community preschool, they're doing it to go work in a public school, is because the wages are so much higher in public schools than they are in early childhood. I mean, we literally pay the people who are building the brain architecture, the foundation for future learning, less than we pay dog walkers. That's the fundamental problem. And this isn't really getting at that. We are watering down the staffing requirements so that we can staff classrooms. But really what we need to do is raise wages. Yeah, and there are other issues that we have some concerns about.
I think Michelle or Representative Cook is
Okay.
likely to ask a question or two that will get at
Okay.
those concerns. Representative Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Meryl, thank you, and thanks for your dedication to children across the state for all these years. I do have a question regarding the Care for Kids conversation.
Yeah.
So that would be section 13, and then I also like your opinion on section 12, the tri-state model, if we could start with those two.
Sure. So the Alliance has long advocated for higher income eligibility for Care for Kids. In fact, we would love to see a system in which no family in Connecticut, regardless of their income, has to pay more than 7% of their income for childcare. Our one concern is the wait list. It is the thing that I get the most complaints from childcare providers about, besides not being able to find staff. And the issue is that we now have families who are up for recertification, who have been up for recertification for 3 months. They haven't been recertified yet. So the child is in the seat, they're getting the care, but if at some point Care for Kids finishes their processing and realizes that kid's not eligible, that program is likely to be out 3 months worth of payments. And we also have lots of families who are waiting to get a space. I realized that after our conversation outside that I mischaracterized something in my written testimony. There are almost 800 children on the wait list. I thought there were 1,300 families in process, being processed as part of that processing delay. But no, in fact, it's 1,300 families who have not even had their application looked at to determine whether or not they meet the bare minimum requirements. So you've got an official wait list, and then you've got this almost double the size group of people whose applications haven't even been looked at. So my concern is those 1,300 families represent more like 17 or 1,750 kids, because some families have more. That plus the 800, we're talking about 2,500 children who have already applied. And the system is currently serving 18,000, I've got the number in the written testimony, 141 children. But you add that to that 2,500, you're already over the number of spaces that the budget allocates of to 20,150. And that means that we won't get through the wait list, and we're adding more people to the pool. So there's a real problem with there not being enough money to fund the Care for Kids program. It is a huge problem for a parent who wants to go to work, who's got a job, who's found a place that has a childcare space, but can't afford it without the help of that subsidy. And it may take them 4 or 5 months to actually be able to get a certificate and pay for care. You also had a question about TRISHARE. Okay.
Yeah, I do. And I want to reiterate the conversation on the Care for Kids wait list. As we all know, we're looking for people to go back to work. And the longer that this system takes for people to get off this wait list, that's the longer it takes for people to go back to work. And so figuring out a way to expedite that and then expand it and fund it appropriately, I think is really where we need to be, because we all know that we need people to go back to work. So to the TRISHARE conversation.
TRISHARE is actually aimed at the group of families above the Care for Kids income limit, who work for employers who are willing to put up some money. And, you know, before I did early childhood, I was a not-for-profit housing developer. I understand the idea of other people's money, but you always want to be trying to figure out how to use someone else's money. And so I understand the attraction of this idea of let's get employers to put in some money to pay for the cost of childcare. But on a big picture level, I look at how we do healthcare in this country, with it primarily being offered as an employee benefit. And that's fine for people who work for a large employer that can offer it, but we have lots and lots of people who work for small employers that don't have the ability to offer that benefit. And so this may work great for the welder at EB who makes more money than the Care for Kids income limit, or maybe has, you know, a spouse with a young child at home but wants to send their preschool age children to preschool. It will help with that. But for somebody who doesn't work in that big company, this is not going to help them. We're creating a fragmented system. And my preference would be to see that we have a universal system that helps everybody, just as we have public schools where everybody can go to a public school. You're not required to. You could go to a private school if you want to, but that public option is available because, you know, we'll have the welder at EB who can get a spot, but the delivery driver who may work for a subcontractor may not get it. It's just that we're not creating a uniform system. We're creating another fragmented system.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and Meryl, thank you for all the work that you do.
Okay.
Representative Duffness.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, I'm trying to understand exactly what you're saying. Are you proposing that we have a universal childcare system in Connecticut that offers everyone free childcare? Because that's kind of what it sounds. You're comparing it to public education, where anybody can go and get public education.
I do think that we need to look at high quality early care and education as a public good that ought to be supported by the public. Yes.
Thank you.
I believe New Mexico may have been the only state that has amended their constitution to make that a right, the way in which K-12 is a right for other everywhere else. Representative Johnson, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon to you. Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony and your work. Much appreciated. When we talk about early childhood, are we talking about having these centers in public schools? I know one of the things that we did in Wyndham is we put our Head Start program in the high school, and hopefully we'll be able to see a transition there where the students that are interested in providing early childhood education to little ones will have a start there and can get their college credit during that process. So I'm hoping that, as we look at early college opportunity throughout our high schools in the state of Connecticut, which is a great program and something we need to continue to work on, this would be another aspect. Now, we've been doing it for things like technology and places. So when students graduate from my district, they'll be able to go into Electric Boat or to Pratt & Whitney or Sikorsky Aircraft. But I think because it takes so much money for students to also get an associate's degree just to do some of the minimal academic kinds of things that you'd want to do with the little ones, that this would be an ideal situation. Is that something that is within the scope of what your testimony is?
So we have a shortage of infant toddler care across the state. We have many communities that don't have enough preschool spaces. And with the change in the kindergarten age, we will have another third of a cohort of children looking for early care and education. So I think this is all options. Your connection of high school students to the career training around early childhood by having an early childhood program in the high school, I think is a novel approach. We need to be looking at all approaches to increase the workforce, because at this point, we have 1 in 7 jobs within childcare centers in the state is a vacant position. And that means that we've got hundreds of closed classrooms. You can't operate a classroom unless you can meet the staff to student ratio. And so that restricts the supply of care, and it also puts childcare programs in economic jeopardy, because typically a childcare program needs to be operating at 90 to 95% enrollment and tuition collection to be breaking even. It is a very low margin industry. And so say you operate 5 classrooms. If you are short a staff person, you can't operate at full capacity because you can't meet your staffing ratios. That means if you can only operate 4 out of your 5 classrooms, you're at 80%, you're not breaking even. And you can only do that for so long before you go out of business. That's the challenge that the childcare sector is facing right now. And we need to figure out how we get more people working in the industry. And fundamentally, that's an issue we have to figure out how we can get them paid better, because working at minimum wage, do I want to send my child to college to learn how to be a great early educator and earn minimum wage or $1 or $2 above it? No. I mean, that's the basic answer. And when you ask students in our higher ed programs, I spoke with a class at UConn. Only 1 out of the whole class was considering a job in a community preschool. The rest were all going to work in public schools. That's just a reality.
Representative Zupkis.
And I do have to say, I agree with you in the fact that I truly believe we have to invest in our children because they're our leaders of tomorrow. But I want to follow up on the question that Representative Dauphiné asked. How do you, I believe you had mentioned, the bigger companies pay for daycare or could pay for.
Could pay, yeah.
Okay. But the smaller mom and pops cannot. And they're really the backbone of our economy. So how do you propose to pay for this? And I asked because I sit on finance as well. And I said, everybody used to come in and ask for millions. Now they ask for billions. And we want people to take care of our elders and our grandparents and our moms and dads, and paras need more money, and everybody. And so how do you propose that this is paid for? Because you did relate it to public education.
Yep. So various states have approached this in different ways. Vermont has just move to a payroll tax that's shared between employers and employees to pay for a big expansion of their version of Care for Kids that will go up to 575% of the federal poverty line, but they estimate that's going to be about 90% of families will be subsidized through that program. That's one approach. You know, my preference would be a progressive tax that takes the money from folks who have more money than for the lower income families. I think the tax incidence report shows that lower income families pay a higher percentage of their income now.
So I would have to say, I believe people with higher incomes do probably pay more. I know more than what I probably pay, but what is the line? Where would you draw that line? I mean, how do you say who's wealthy and who's not? Where?
So I'm not sure that we need to get
Yeah.
into a
Well,
funding
okay.
question right now. I mean, if you have one directed question that you would like him to get at, let's
Oh,
get at
I guess
that.
if you're done, I mean, you think the rich should pay and companies should pay. Is that what, any other suggestions on how to?
yeah, I-
Because I don't want to ask my constituents to pay more money. They're already paying a lot of taxes. So any other suggestions to pay for it?
And that is okay if you do
Yeah,
not.
so I mean, I think what I'm saying is that when you look at our healthcare system, we have the most expensive healthcare system in the world, and we have lots of people who don't have any coverage at all, and medical debt is still the primary reason that people file bankruptcy. So that model of this hodgepodge of employer-sponsored things and safety net, and it doesn't work as efficiently as a single system set up to serve everybody that has the support of everybody because everybody gets benefit from
So I
it.
think we've gotten a little
Yeah.
far from the
Yeah, I
legislation
think you're
before
right.
us today. So if there are any other questions on the legislation, Representative, were you done? Representative? Were you all? Thank you. Representative McCarty.
You know, just very quickly, you were giving us your testimony and you said you had a number of concerns, and have you finished with your concerns? Because I always appreciate hearing what you have to say.
So I guess the last one is about the childcare incubator. I've been on the advisory board for the New Britain one and followed its progress because this was permission to create a new pilot model rather than a funded program. It means that it's taken a long time for them to raise the money to get everything up and running. And they're really actually only about to launch now. So our recommendations are that we extend or even just take off the end date of this pilot so that programs will continue to develop without having to worry that we're going to fall off a cliff when we get to 2026. But at the same time that we also think about how we could use this model in other places. So we would prefer to see it opened up to a larger group than simply New London County. I mean, obviously New London County is a childcare desert, but so is Windham County. So there are a bunch of childcare deserts.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your comments.
Thanks.
Seeing no other questions, we appreciate your time today.
Thank you.
I think 14 is running late, we were told, so we're gonna move to number 15, Sandy Lamonaco. Sandy, if you want to just unmute and throw your video on.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
Hi, thank you, Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, distinguished members of the Education Committee. I'm testifying in response to HB 5051, an act establishing early start in Connecticut, and SB 152, an act implementing recommendations of the Office of Early Childhood, as well as support for the Governor Lamont's Blue Ribbon Panel recommendations. My name's Sandy Lamonaco, and I'm a parent of a 23-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. I'm a public health professional, a social worker with a concentration on urban policy, and a community organizer currently working for Forge City Works located in Hartford, Connecticut, as the Employment Services Director. I'm also recently a member of the Child Care for Connecticut's Future, a statewide coalition of parents, providers, and advocates coming together to fix childcare in Connecticut. Currently, the Care for Kids program has a wait time of 3 months, as you've heard, leaving providers unpaid and the parents desperate and scrambling to find care. I know firsthand what the scramble is like, and luckily I was able to put childcare payments on a credit card temporarily. But most low-income families do not have this option. It's beyond unfair to children and families to be put in a position like that. Too many parents have to gamble with providers in hopes of understanding the financial situation they have. Parents are hoping that they're able to get employment promises as they keep their children safely cared for. This experience makes parents extremely anxious, and not a good situation for families, and not healthy for children. 3 months is a long time for a business owner or daycare provider to remain unpaid waiting. Access to affordable childcare should be timely and efficient. My 4-year-old received quality childcare, through a small center called Green World Family Child Care Home, where he learned his first language in Spanish, second in English, which is most children in this country. He learned age-appropriate safety practices, nutritional choices, and emotional regulation. My son is very lucky to have had this experience due to agency referrals such as Birth to Three and DCF. For parents without referrals, they are already overwhelmed with trying to get their children into a quality childcare center, forcing parents to bargain, gamble, and scramble and make their childcare choices slim and very stressful while trying to work. I'm motivated by the Office of Early Childhood and Governor Lamont's desire to fix childcare in Connecticut. There are many examples around the world that we can take to fix this structural issue. We don't need more money. We need to fix this problem. We do need to increase some care and provide some threshold for Care for Kids, because Care for Kids could be doing better with support of funding to raise their subsidy income. Attention to expanding access will help all families continue to struggle to afford childcare. Improving access to high quality, affordable childcare will require a commitment from not just elected officials, but all people that will be able to come together in committees and be able to build this structure so families can all strive. We need public funding that will require a long-term state investment. I asked you to vote in the
Just wrapping
passing.
up your comments for us.
Yep, that's it. I asked you to vote in the passing. Thank you so much for listening to my testimony today, and I welcome questions.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time. It doesn't appear there are any questions. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
Next up, Corliss Santana.
Good morning, Chairman Curry and McCrory, Ranking Members Rathel, McCarthy, and distinguished members of the Education Committee. My name is Corley Santana. I'm the Policy and Advocacy Strategist for the Connecticut Project Action Fund, which is a nonprofit organization that mobilizes people and partners to advocate for solutions that better the lives of Connecticut's vulnerable and financially distressed families. I will save you from listening to me read nervously and say that we are here to support House Bill 5051 and Senate Bill 152. You've heard a lot of good testimony today as it relates to the state of the early care system. What we value is this bill's commitment in reference to House Bill 5051 is the bill's commitment to ensuring that all children, particularly those in low-income households, have access to high-quality early childhood learning experience. Thanks to the work of our partners and advocates and the Governor's Blue Ribbon Panel, we know that there are 72% of Connecticut towns that have unmet infant toddler needs, and that results at 10 towns lacking over 6,000 slots, and across 122 municipalities, the deficit increases to more than 1,400. We expect that in light of the legislature's decision to change the kindergarten age in such a swift timeline, that impact is going to be even more severe in terms of the unmet need of infant, toddler, and pre-K slots. A critical component of this bill is Section 18, which is expanded the Child Care Business Incubator Program. We are supportive of this and think that it's a great opportunity to further expand this bill, amend it to include other child care deserts, such as Windham County specifically, and other municipalities. the work that the New Britain Incubator Program has done has pioneered this model in Connecticut and in the nation. And so opening that up so that we have more solutions to address the needs in the system and get parents access to care is something that we encourage this committee to do. And we also support another innovative model, which is TriShare, and that is applauded by the business community. I think they've understood that in order to get their workforce up, they need to provide childcare, which is something I can relate to very deeply as a parent to a 1-year-old and 4-year-old. I think what we're seeing here is that low-income families are already struggling to afford early childhood education, and they want that experience for their children. The bill's proposal increasing eligibility to 65% of SMI is promising, but we think that we need to focus on getting the other 79% of families not receiving subsidies to get those subsidies. So with that, I end my testimony and welcome questions.
Thanks so much. It's great to see you. You're likely to see some additional language come out of the committee or work its way through the committee, excuse me, with respect to the incubators and how we may be able to open that up a little bit more to be able to kind of attack some of those deserts that you mentioned. Susan Johnson is not sitting here, or I'm sure she would lament as to why that is needed so much. Any other questions from committee? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Louise Lisboa.
Good afternoon, Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, Senator Berthel, and Representative McCarty, and distinguished members of the Education Committee. My name is Louise Lisboa, and I am here representing Fran Pastori, CEO of the Women's Business Development Council, or WBDC, as I am our Vice President of Child Care Program and Impact. For those of you that don't know, WBDC is a nonprofit that provides business education and grants to women-owned small businesses and child care providers throughout Connecticut to help them launch and scale their ventures. Our Child Care Business Support Program is a pioneering model offered in partnership with the OEC. Since our program's inception, we have delivered nearly 9,000 hours of education, over $6 million in grants to early childhood businesses across Connecticut, which have in turn supported over 8,000 childcare jobs and nearly 36,000 slots for children. We support the governor's proposed improvements to the early care and education industry, particularly House Bill 5051. The ECE system has been broken for an exceedingly long time. Our nation needs a universal strategic vision to solve this critical economic issue. And I am so proud that Connecticut is leading the way with our work on Child Care for Connecticut's Future Coalition, and especially the Governor's Blue Ribbon Panel's recommendation, which WBDC has contributed to through public sessions. Working with over 1,400 childcare providers in the past 4 years, WBDC has seen countless childcare businesses and families struggle. We cannot continue with business as usual. For far too long, we have relied on women, and especially minority women, to carry the industry on their backs, perpetuating inequities. The time has come to make the long-needed improvements to the industry. These improvements and the related investments must not be a patchwork of Band-Aid solutions. Rather, they must be strategic and in line with proven findings. Therefore, we support House Bill 5051 that merges child daycare contracts, school readiness, and state Head Start into one new Early Start program. We also support the bill's proposed implementation of a TriShare program in New London County and expanded income eligibility for Care for Kids. We are also in support of OEC Commissioner's recommendations in Senate Bill 152, including around the apprenticeship program. These initiatives reduce barriers for childcare providers to operate efficiently and support the workforce. They also enable parents to afford the best care available to them, reducing the disparities in access between economic classes. As our elected leaders, you have the chance to make a meaningful difference and continue to do what is right for children, parents, and the workforce. I urge you to vote in favor of HB 5051 and Senate Bill 152 to invest in women and families and support a stronger early care and education system in Connecticut. Thank you for your time, and I welcome questions.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I don't see any questions. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
Next up is Maria Amato. No, okay. We'll go to number 19, Tashiana O'Connor.
Hello.
Hello.
I'm sorry. Um, good afternoon, Senator McCoy and Representative Corey, a distinguished member of the Education Committee. My name is Tashiana O'Connor, and I am a child care provider. I've been a provider for 15 years and a member of the Child Care for Connecticut Future and statewide coalition of parents, provider, and advocate coming together to fix child care. I am asking that you support HB 5051 and SB 152 and the Governor Blue Ribbon Panel recommendation and additional support for parents affected by kindergarten Head Start. I have firsthand experience, as you see, I'm wearing a mask. Getting payment, childcare subsidy, where from Care for Kids, and for me, I don't collect the parent provider fee because the parents have difficulty paying for those fees, and I make so much that I'm not eligible for state insurance. So by me, I can't take a day off. I have to work whether I'm sick or not. And with you put more subsidy for Care for Kids, I will be able to get that $2,000 monthly, monthly parent fee that I'm not collecting, so I could be able to get adequate health insurance. I am grateful grateful for the governor focus on the issue, and the current proposal rescue falls short of what needed to bolster the early childhood education system. These bills are beginning to support parents and provide a needed service family should already have. Programs such as Care for Kids have a virtual lifetime and working family. Therefore, the support funding raised subsidy income from 60% to state medium income to 65%. Improving access to high quality, affordable health care, a required committee, public funding, and will require a long-term state investment. I hope you consider passing HB 5051, SB 15, support the Blue Ribbon Panel recommendation. Thank you. You have a great day.
Thank you so much, and we appreciate you taking time to testify today. I don't see any questions, so enjoy your afternoon. Next up, we have Francesca Velasquez.
Good afternoon, distinguished members of the Education Committee. My name is Francesca Velasquez, owner of Play to Learn Childcare in Stamford. I'm testifying in response to HB 5051, an act establishing early start CT, and SB 152, an act implementing the recommendations of the Office of Early Childhood, as well as support to Governor Lamont's Blue Ribbon Panel recommendations. As an early child care educator for over a decade, I have grown my business to several families in Connecticut. I have seen firsthand how childcare has been forgotten. Currently, parents who are most in need and qualify for Care for Kids wait to receive services. The Care for Kids wait list, and I'm giving an example of the things that happened. I had a family that came to me at 3 months, applied for Care for Kids, was put on a wait list as a new applicant, and now she's coming back to me and her baby is 8 months old. That means that she waited 5 months to get approved. Meantime, the child was with the grandmother. Not only is that a wait list, we also have families that are on Care for Kids going through the retermination process. And I had a family that was on the retermination process, and because it took Care for Kids a long time to process her retermination, she fell off of my invoice, and I did not get paid for 5 months. And that's times 2. I'm in Stamford, so if you do the math, that was a chunk of my revenue and operation, revenue that I use for operations to pay my staff. I've seen myself towards the end of the year stretched. When I say stretched, to make payroll, it breaks my heart. But I also want to help families and provide care, but I'm left to choose. What am I going to do? The Care for Kids has an impact on us and owners, operators, because most of my center in Stanford is 80 to 90% Care for Kids. And it makes it really hard to budget on inconsistent revenue. So bills like HB 5051, SB 152, and the Blue Ribbon Panel recommendations allows for easier access to subsidy programs and much needed support for providers. And as a provider, I encouraged by the Office of Early Childhood and the governor's desire to fix childcare, but these bills are not nearly enough. These bills are the beginning of the support parents and providers need. However, I am asking you to support these changes. I was asking
If I could just ask
to
you
go.
to wrap up, please.
Okay, so I'm just asking that we just go above and beyond, because without us providing the childcare to our Connecticut families, no one goes to work. And that's just the bottom line. If I can't open my doors and I have to shut them down, no one goes to work. So I hope that you guys take it into consideration. And I thank you for listening to me.
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today. I enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Next up, Andrew Feinstein.
Hi. You have a lot of bills up today. I want to comment on a number of them. As to the Early Start program, SEEK is in support of that program. I think the legislation as introduced still does not integrate special ed services and the birth to 3 services sufficiently with the Early Start program. I think work needs to be done in that area. One thing that's really important to note is that there are a lot of birth to 3 kids who, on leaving birth to 3, their parents do not enroll them in public schools for special education because the public schools offer a 3-day-a-week, half-day preschool program. And so parents would prefer to enroll them in a private childcare program where they do not get special ed services. We can fix that in this legislation and provide those special education services through these preschool programs. But in answer to Representative Dauphinet's question, yes, we ought to move to universal preschool for all kids in Connecticut. And, you know, I'm not ready to talk about financing of it. We've got to put together a proposal to look at how that would work. But the benefits of such a program are really enormous. Let me move to 580. The language on lines 388 to 395 seem to be technically insufficient. There are kids who do not receive a high school diploma, do not earn a high school diploma, who are eligible for transition services through the school year in which they turn 22. The bill does not seem to provide for that, and I just got to assume that's a drafting error. More importantly, for kids who do meet academic standards for graduation, but who can be eligible for transition services, we don't have any clear standards for where that is now. And this has been an area of substantial controversy, which we ought to be at least look at providing some clear standards for transition services for kids with disabilities who do not have the skills, the personal, behavioral, individual skills to live, work, study independently, but have reached the academic requirements. There are some issues with licensing of residential facilities. You know, if as long as we're dealing with transition services, we really have to look at the licensing of residential facilities where DDS is now moving to say that they're not going to license pre-18. We have a lot of kids in residential educational facilities, and we've got to find, you know, right now they're either licensed apparently through a DDS or DCF, which may not be appropriate for basically educational institutions. I was just told that the part, there's got to be something wrong with that.
Nice job.
A lot of other comments in my bills. I do want to say on the CTEX, I am enormously impressed. This was the Voc Tech schools 10 years ago overtly discriminated against kids with disabilities. Now they provide some of the best services for kids with disabilities, and they're really to be congratulated for that change.
Thank you
There's
very
plenty
much.
more. Please read my testimony.
Yeah. Have you had a chance to sit or speak with the commissioner of OEC or SDE with respect to your concerns, more specifically, I guess, OEC and the integration of the special ed services?
I have not, no, sir. I'll do that. I'll talk to her.
Okay. Any questions for Attorney Fat? Representative Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for your work and your testimony. With respect to the developmentally disabled, when they transition out of the school services at the age of, I think it's 21 now, are we connecting them with the Department of Labor to see what types of special opportunities might be available that may not be thought of during the educational period? My understanding is our Department of Labor does provide for people that have other types of special needs, and they understand how to provide the reasonable accommodations for the students, and could help make a transition to the next step. And I wondered if any of the analysis you've been doing has been working on that aspect of that transition.
Students with disabilities are now eligible for services through the school year in which they turn 22. Decisions about their programming are made at the local level through the local PPT process. And there's a requirement that the PPT look to agencies, state agencies, to provide those services. I think it varies widely. It's very frequent that parents are referred to BRS, which is, I guess, part of the Department of Labor, to look for job placements and opportunities. My experience has been that it has not been terribly effective, but that's, it's something we really ought to, we've got to get our state agencies working together for the common good here. And we ought to do what we can to make that happen.
Just to follow up a little bit on that, there seems to be a misunderstanding, I think, about special needs and special ed students. And the fact is that some of them are incredibly proficient doing so many things, but they might have a visual or hearing or a combination of those types of disabilities that get in the way, but nevertheless, they function just fine. But because they have the special ed label, they're in a situation where employers are not as focused. And I'm wondering if there's a way that what we've been analyzing in the last year or so with the workforce analysis on special needs situations has cued into the range of students that have special needs and their functional capacities so that they can become employed and not have the label so much limiting their access to gainful employment.
I agree with you. I think that's something we really have to look at. And I'll tell you, that's one of the great virtues of what the technical schools have done. We've got these kids who can't, abstract education, writing essays. They're not going to be able to do that, but they can work with their hands. And so that, the fact that they're now going to the CTEC schools and learning skills is leading to a lot more kids being able to live, work independently when they grow up.
Thank you so much for your testimony and remarks. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative McCarty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome, Attorney Feinstein. I always appreciate your comments and read your testimony. We're still going through it, but I do want to go back to lines 3. You pointed out 388 to 395, and is your major concern that that's not in keeping with the law currently?
Major concern is that it does not specifically cover the largest category of transition students, who are those who do not earn a high school diploma at 18 or whatever, continue to be eligible in the system through the school year in which they turn 22. That's all. I think it's just a technical drafting issue.
Yeah. And after you have your conversation, maybe you would get back to us so
Okay.
we can look at that. Thank you.
All right, looks like you're all set.
Oh,
Oh, I'm sorry. Representative,
Welcome, Mr. Weinstein.
How are you?
Good. My question has to do, I know that this is an encouragement for this preschool for all. And my question would be, at what age would it be appropriate for the children to start attending? Would this be mandatory or optional? And what kind of sources will we fund this with?
All excellent questions, all questions that a group of experts in this field ought to get together and work out a proposal on. This is aspirational. This is not something that's going to happen in my lifetime, although maybe in yours. But we really have to develop the type of program. And maybe you phase it in 1 year at a time. I mean, we do have a big problem right now with the kindergarten age change and a large group of kids with who are waiting another year for educational services. We need a strong preschool program to develop school readiness. And I think that, we would see a lot better performance in K through 12 if kids were better prepared to enter it. And right now they come in with all sorts of different levels of preparation.
thank you, Andy. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you, sir.
And I'm sure we'll see you soon. Next up, we have Jennifer Perez Carabello. Just need you to unmute, Jennifer.
Okay, here we go.
Thank you.
Let me know when to start.
You are good to go.
Okay. Good afternoon, Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, and distinguished members of Education Committee. My name is Jennifer Perez Caraballo, and I'm a parent to a 7-year-old and a member of Child Care for Connecticut's Future, a statewide coalition of parents, providers, and advocates coming together to fix childcare. I'm testifying in response to HB 5051, an act establishing Early Start CT, and SB 152, an act implementing the recommendations of the Office of the Early Childhood, as well as support for Governor Lamont's Blue Ribbon Panel recommendations. As a single mom, community advocate, and a statewide organizer, I am witnessing the effects of the broken child care system and what they're having in every single town in city in Connecticut. This is a problem that is affecting people across the state, with mothers, womenfolk, child care workers, grandparents, and children, disabled and sick children, and people surviving poverty bearing the brunt. While we are talking about childcare, early childcare, I think it's important to add, right, that this hearing is happening during my town school spring break, and I have found myself in the middle of working full time, as well as raising a child, a 7-year-old full time. And it has been quite the adventure in the worst ways. And so I don't have many childcare options, and I'm completely worn out from parenting full time and working full time. And this is exactly what we ask new parents to do when we don't support them with childcare. This week has brought me back to being a new mom, juggling breastfeeding, learning how to mother, working and managing my then mother-in-law, who was the only childcare provider who we can afford. And as my child grew, so did their queerness. And it became even more stressful to find adequate childcare that was sensitive and accommodating to our needs. As a result, I left the workforce. I have heard so many people mention that they want to bring more women into the Connecticut's workforce, including our governor. And I'm just here to remind folks that it's not just about adding women to the workforce, it's also about keeping us here. In a world where childcare is still regarded as a woman's job, a lack of adequate childcare is a bid to ensure that women are not able to be in the workforce. My child has aged out of the birth to 3 and the pre-K kindergarten system, and I'm still recovering economically from having to leave the workforce. I just started a year ago working again. Or 2. An equitable childcare system that takes my child's and every child's need into consideration. It must be affordable, accessible, on my way to work, accommodating to queerness, bilingual, making space for neurodiverse families, and a place my child loves. The more I get to know about our childcare system, the more evident it became to me as to why it was so difficult to find this. Childcare providers across the state have been advocating for years that they aren't paid adequately, and there are so many hurdles to get their additional trainings that they need. And while these are businesses, I get that, they're also providing care to developing humans, our children. So we must treat this as the benefit and service to society that it actually is. As a parent, I am motivated by the early office of childhood and the governor's desire to fix the child care, but these bills are just simply not enough. Programs like Care for Kids are a critical resource for working families, and so therefore we support a funding increase to raise the subsidy income limit from 60% of the state median to 65%. In my case, it would have made a huge difference. Perhaps it would have made juggling childcare a lot easier, and maybe I wouldn't have had to take the break from the workforce, which threw me into an economic despair.
If you wouldn't mind summarizing for us?
Absolutely. I hope you consider passing HB 5051, SB 152 to support the Blue Ribbons panel's recommendation and explore long-term options for generating state revenue to raise the funds needed to support family childcare and early childhood education and make a huge difference in many, many women across Connecticut's lives. I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you so much for taking time and for sharing your thoughts and your opinions and your real world experience with us. We truly appreciate that. Have an excellent day. We're going to go back. Number 14 is online. Lisa Cordova, one of our great kindergarten teachers in Connecticut.
Hi, thank you so much for waiting for me. Good afternoon, members of the Education Committee. My name is Lisa Cordova. I'm a kindergarten teacher and I'm currently in my 34th year, and I'm here to support House Bill 5051. I am very excited to see that Governor Lamont is focusing on supporting and enhancing early childhood programs across the state. I can't emphasize enough the importance of having access to strong educational programs taught by well-prepared and supported quality educators for children in their early learning years. Starting the positive learning journey at a young age is key. There is no better way to help our youngest learners develop the skills and strategies they need to become problem solvers and educational adventurers. Play-based learning during their early years gives children the opportunity to learn how to navigate building healthy relationships with peers as well as with themselves. It gives experiences that show students how to handle frustration, disappointment, and disagreements in ways that allow them to persevere and keep trying until they succeed. These are important strategies that are needed to be successful lifelong learners. The more students who have access to quality early childhood programs will directly affect successful learning communities in all grade levels moving forward. Please support House Bill 5051 and establish quality early childhood programs for all Connecticut students. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much, Lisa. We appreciate your comments and thank you for the work that you're doing to prepare our littlest learners for what is next.
Thank you. I love what I'm doing, so I need to have more people doing it.
Next up, we have Colleen Brower.
Good afternoon, Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, and members of the Education Committee. Thank you for the opportunity to testify on HB 5051. My name is Colleen Brower, and I have been in the early childhood profession for more than 30 years, and I'm currently the Early Childhood Teacher Credential Individual Review Route Coordinator for the Connecticut Association for the Education of Young Children. I'm testifying today to urge the committee to re-examine 3 options in the proposed new staffing requirements for state-funded early childhood programs, namely the following. Number 1, the bachelor's degree requirement by confirmed employment without a concentration in early childhood education, but with at least 12 early childhood credits. Number 2, a bachelor's degree without a concentration in early childhood, but with at least 12 early childhood credits. And number 3, permission if enrolled in an institution of higher education and engaged in making progress towards a program of study leading to a bachelor's degree in early childhood education. Effective early childhood educators are critical for realizing the early childhood profession's vision that each and every young child birth through age 8 have equitable access to high quality learning and care environments. As such, the National Association for the Education of Young Children's professional standards and competencies for early childhood educators define a core body of knowledge, skills, values, and dispositions early childhood educators must demonstrate to effectively promote the development, learning, and well-being of all young children. The staffing requirements raised above do not ensure a core body of knowledge, skills, values, and disposition is shared, thus negatively impacting the care and education early childhood teachers deliver to young children. These staffing requirement options do not ensure an early childhood teacher has mastery over a core body of knowledge, do not ensure an early childhood education teacher has demonstrated the proficiency in skills, values, and dispositions to effectively promote the development, learning, and well-being of all young children, and do not ensure that a person with 12 early childhood education credits has ever stepped into an early childhood classroom. The Office of Early Childhood has a well-established, efficient, and highly successful system currently in operation for individuals who hold a bachelor's or associate's degree in a field other than early childhood or child development, but hold at least 12 credits in early childhood education called the Early Childhood Teacher Credential Individual Review Route, the ECTC IRR. It's based on and it uses the National Association for the Education of Young Children's professional standards and competencies. These are the same standards that are used in early childhood higher education programs in Connecticut and ensure individuals who successfully complete the ECTC IRR process do, in fact, possess and demonstrate a core body of knowledge, skills, values, and dispositions to effectively promote the development, learning, and well-being of all young children. This process offers individual an opportunity to demonstrate meeting the NAEYC professional standards and competencies through a
Colleen,
review
can
of
I
their
ask you to summarize, please.
college transcripts, experience, and professional development, and a statement about their experience. They submit a portfolio regarding how they meet the standards and competencies. To date, 48 individuals have successfully completed this process, with another 24 targeted to complete by September 2024. Indeed, there is a staffing crisis in Connecticut and nationally. However, the answer,
Please summarize for us.
yep, that is not having less qualified staff caring for and educating our youngest children. Early childhood is a critical period for development where experiences greatly shape a child's future. This change in the education requirements would be a step backwards for Connecticut and for the early childhood profession.
Colleen,
Let's
we
not
really
lower.
appreciate your comments today. I see if there are any questions from members. There are not. We look forward to hopefully hearing from you in the future again. Thank you for your.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to go back to Maria Amato. She is on, as well as we have someone here for translation services. Maria? We just need to unmute.
Sorry.
No?
Good afternoon, Senador McCrory, Representante Curey y distinguidos miembros del Comité de Educación. Mi nombre es María Amado y soy una orgullosa educadora de cuidado infantil en el hogar y también soy miembro, vicepresidenta del CCEA, del CIU y miembro de Child Care for Connecticut Future. Soy educadora de cuidado infantil ya casi por una década y también soy madre de una niña en edad escolar. Para muchos, la educación es un derecho fundamental de todo representante de Connecticut. Me aseguro de brindarles a mis familias el mejor plan de estudio de educación temprana que pueda ofrecer y me esfuerzo cada día para asistir al desarrollo profesional para brindar lo mejor a los niños que asisten a mi programa. Digo esto porque uno de los muchos problemas que afectan al sistema del cuidado infantil en nuestro estado es la falta de recursos de conectividad entre educadores, nosotras las proveedoras, como yo y los padres, bajo la ley HB 5051 y SB 152 y el plan del panel Blue Ribbon del gobernador.
María, voy a traducir bien rápido. Sorry, she's getting, it's a lot to translate, so give me a second. Good afternoon, Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, and distinguished members of the Education Committee. My name is Maria Amato. I'm a proud CSEA SEIU Child Care Union Vice President, as well as a member of Connecticut's Child Care for Connecticut's Future. I've been a child care educator for over a decade and a proud parent of one school-age daughter. Education, to me, is very fundamental. It's a fundamental right of Connecticut citizens and residents. I ensure to give my families the best early education curriculum I can provide to make a point to attend professional development trainings frequently. I say this because one of the many issues plaguing childcare system in our state is lacking the resources of connectivity between providers like me and the parents. HB 5051 and SB 152 and the Governor's Blue Ribbon Panel plan are the beginning of fixing the problems in the childcare system. For example, María, siguiente.
Por ejemplo, nosotras, las educadoras de cuidado infantil, familiar, pasamos por un gran problema específicamente cuando hablamos con las familias. Estas familias mantienen ahora con esta nueva ley que es a nivel nacional, de que los niños estén hasta la edad de 5 años, pero en la economía nos afecta a nosotros y les afecta a las familias, porque el programa de Care for Kids, el subsidio es mucho menos y las familias tienen que sacar a sus niños del programa porque no pueden pagar, porque lo que paga Care for Kids es bien va a ser atendidos en casa. Y hablamos tanto de la calidad en los niños, en los programas de cuidado infantil. Con esta ley lo que estamos haciendo es perjudicando a la familia, perjudicándonos a nosotros porque no vamos a podernos mantener operativos. La otra situación es la capacidad que nosotros tenemos limitadas. Tenemos una capacidad máxima de 9. Esperemos que en este plan de la cinta azul realmente se debe de dar una buena legislación que beneficie a las familias y nos beneficie a nosotras las educadoras, que haya un equilibrio tanto en calidad y un equilibrio tanto en el sistema financiero para nosotras las educadoras. Muchísimas gracias.
Currently the childcare, for example, the childcare crisis right now that I see, and I hear many conversations from parents and other providers talking about this problem day to day, are the kindergarten start age, as well as the delays that we have in subsidy programs. Many of the parents that I take care of take advantage of the Care for Kids program, but also really need and depend on making sure that childcare is there and attainable to them. So by changing and delaying the kindergarten start age, it has created a real problem for providers like myself trying to figure out when the child comes in, when the child comes out, and the difference in time. We have this law change really impacts us, and we really have to take in consideration ways to support and make sure parents and providers have options. Tú cerraste con el equilibrio entre padres y las proveedoras. ¿Lo puedes repetir, por favor?
Correcto. Sí, el equilibrio entre padres y proveedores.
We really need a balance between the provider.
Tanto en la calidad de los programas y en la calidad, también que beneficien en la economía de las familias como para nosotros. Ese es el equilibrio en dar una buena legislación.
We really need a balance between the quality of care as well as the access to care, and that is the balance that is needed through legislation changes that we're asking you to do. So please take that in consideration for the changes that would really truly benefit parents and providers. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amato. Next up, we have Stephen Hernandez.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, esteemed members of the Education Committee. Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, Ranking Members Berthel and McCarty, and other distinguished members of the Education Committee. I'm Steve Hernandez, and I'm the Executive Director for CONCAN, a statewide advocacy organization committed to building equitable and accessible educational opportunities for all of Connecticut's students, regardless of race, family, or community resources, or more succinctly, zip code. Today, I'm going to focus here with my colleague, and together we're going to focus on House Bills 5051 and House Bills 5180. I will focus on the first, an act establishing Early Start Connecticut. One of the most impressive and beautiful feats of nature is the development of a young child's brain. Between the ages of 0 and 5, a child undergoes great cognitive transformation, quickly developing those gross and finer motor skills, problem solving, language, social, and emotional skills. This, of course, does not happen in a vacuum, but through the careful and purposeful collaboration between parents and caregivers, family, and the early care and education community. Any K-12 educator or parent understands how early care and education can positively shape the mind and abilities of our children, preparing them for lifelong success. Spend time with any parent who has a plan for their child's future. They wonder, what care will they seek? How will that impact their personal economy? Where should our child attend kindergarten? How should we begin planning for post-secondary costs and workforce success? Parents think systemically about their children's experience in the educational system, and we should too. The investment Connecticut made in its K-12 schools in 2023 is a vital piece of this education puzzle, just as this investment in Early Start Connecticut is today. The two are inextricably linked because children grow up. Their needs change, and so we must invest in and at all levels in that experience. We can do both, and we must do both. We cannot set up an educational system where we are making a Sophie's choice between an early care system that is to prepare children for a robust K-12 experience and then deliver them into a K-12 experience that is insufficient. I now want to cede the floor to my colleague, Lou, who's going to be speaking to the second bill. We're in line together, and what we figure is that we would testify in lines to give you the opportunity to ask us each questions as you see fit.
You have 26 seconds on your time. We'll start his clock anew.
Well,
You are the next speaker, Louis.
With my 26 seconds, I think I would just highlight a couple of elements of the bill that are really important. Providing choice for families, of course, is critically important. Strengthening the family through encouragement of family engagement. This is critically important. Families want to be and should be engaged in the lifelong educational success of their kids. And as we have other investments that we're investing in as families, and to wrap up, it's critically important that they be part of the equation. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Louis?
Yes, greetings to everyone here in this committee, greetings to Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, ranking members Berthel and McCarthy, and other esteemed members of the Education Committee. My name is Louis Ortiz, and I am the State Grassroots Manager with CONCAN. As our Executive Director mentioned, we're a nonprofit focused on equality and equitable education for all students in Connecticut, regardless of their zip code. Today, I stand before you to show my support for House Bill 5180 and to leverage this opportunity to expand our approach. First, I'd like to send my gratitude to the State Department of Education for the commitment to the educational advancements of our multilingual learners and their community members. Their collaborative efforts have been pivotal in the implementation of our Multilingual Learners Bill of Rights that was passed last session, and we proudly endorse any endeavors aimed at expanding the educational outcomes of our multilingual learners and their family members. Which leads me to my next point, the seal of biliteracy. We believe Connecticut has the opportunity to draw insights from our neighboring state in Massachusetts and establish a more robust seal of biliteracy that not only recognizes academic achievement, but also enhances career prospects and addresses the state's shortage in certified translators. By adopting a guidance model similar to what the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education in Massachusetts has released, we can ensure that high school graduates possess language proficiency levels that enable them to intern at a district or school level, acquiring advanced interpretation skills for crucial interactions such as individualized education plans and other meetings within the school. This model would incentivize students to pursue the seal as it offers a tangible benefit, real world in the profession training, and addresses the critical shortfall of certified translators within our state. In essence, our seal of biliteracy could serve as Connecticut's Grow Your Own pipeline. Attached to my testimony is a copy of the three-tiered model that Massachusetts has developed, and I eagerly look forward to discussing this opportunity with each and every one of you and to answer any questions that you may or may not have now or in a future date. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you so much. Representative Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony. I'm wondering, in terms of when you think of biliteracy, what types of programs do you look at? Do you look at bilingual education, dual language programs? Which types of things are you focused on?
Yeah, definitely. So with this specific hearing, we're focused on obviously the educational outcomes of our multilingual learners, but utilizing the tools and resources that the state already has, right? One of them being the seal of biliteracy. Currently, the seal as it stands is just a seal that a student or graduate would receive on the diploma, but it really has no real tangible benefits to it. They can't walk into an employer and say, hey, I have this seal, and they will be looked at as a better candidate than someone who didn't have it. So we're just looking to expand this seal, replicate models that our neighboring states have done effectively and have spent the time researching, so that could save us some time and doing the research. And by growing the seal of biliteracy, we'll be able to, like I said, tackle three things. We'll be able to encourage students to actually want to graduate with this seal. We have over 45,000 students in the state of
I
Connecticut.
don't mean to cut you off, but I asked you about the types of language teaching instruction, whether it would be bilingual, dual language. There are different types, and you're kind of not focusing on the ways that we have in the state already that address really excellent ways of having students learn another language and other ways that are not quite as good in terms of teaching students to have both languages. Say they have a home language that isn't English, and they need to be able to keep that home language, but also learn English. And so I just asked, which programs do you think are the best?
Definitely. Unfortunately, Representative, I didn't come prepared today to critique individual programs that we do have. I just
Very
wanted to
good.
expand on an opportunity.
We have dual language programs, and they are the best, but I just wanted to see what your position was on it. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator McCrory.
Thank you for your testimony. You was explaining the value of the seal, the three things that will accomplish with this seal and what other states have. Can you elaborate on that and explain those three things that will be accomplished by having this seal?
Yeah, just to clarify, I make sure I understood you correctly. You want me to elaborate on the three things that the seal can do?
Yeah, you explaining the value of having the seal that other states have, the three things that you were focused on.
Definitely, yeah. So those three things would be in higher student participation, higher district participation, and then tackling the shortfall, which is the amount of certified translators that the state of Connecticut has.
Okay, and you said other states have done this, correct?
Not necessarily. So the model that I am basing this idea on is the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education from Massachusetts. In 2018, I believe, established a task force to look for guidance for the multilingual learners and their communities. Throughout this task force in 2019, they earmarked $1 million to put into the district, the Department of Ed, to help facilitate what does this translation look like. And they developed a 3-tier system that would be based off of service providers and folks that they would contract out to do this role. What I'm saying, or what I'm hoping to encourage this body to take up, is that we incorporate that model into our already existing seal so that high schoolers can graduate with a little leg ahead into the workforce, while also helping the state tackle its issue, which is the shortage of certified translators in all state agencies.
Thank you. Now that explains a little better for me. I appreciate that. I'm done.
Representative McCarty.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and welcome to both of you to the Education Committee. And first, if I may, personal privilege, recognize Attorney Hernandez and wish you well in your new position as Executive Director at CONCAN. I'm so glad to see you today because I know we're going to have ongoing conversations in education, but I wanted to just thank you for emphasizing the continuum with early childhood learning and how that impacts your lifelong learning, actually, and for your insight there on really keeping parental engagement in the forefront. I know in your work in the past with the commission, you made that a very high priority. And so I'm glad to hear you echoing those same remarks today and looking forward to doing as much as we can in that regard. And also on the biliteracy seal, I think the Department of Education and the good senator here was instrumental in having the world languages also looked at in the K through 12 model curriculum. So as we move forward, I would imagine we will have a natural increase in our students' interest in world language. And it's time for the United States. We talk about all these, we're far behind most of the other world nations. And so it's a real pleasure to see us focusing on world languages and the biliteracy seal. I was saying to my chair here, we'll have to look and monitor and see, maybe we'll have an interim seal going forward before we get to the secondary level. So really my comments thanking both of you for being here today.
And I want to thank you, Representative McCarty, firstly for your kind words, but also for illuminating the role of family. What we learn from family and what we've learned from families for so long is that what they're looking for is access to the economy. They're looking to either formalize the economies that they're engaging in now, or to engage in sustainable formal economies that are actually going to improve the futures for their family. Our educational goals need to be aligned with an economic success strategy for the state. When a family succeeds economically, a community succeeds economically, and the state succeeds economically. And that's why, in our estimation, the question of where is it that we fund when funds are scarce really needs to be deepened by asking, really, what are the assets that families bring to communities, and what are the assets that we are missing because we are under tapping those assets that families bring in community and in their own lives. In our estimation, an early investment in family and community really will bring later success, not only to the democracy that Connecticut is, but to the economy that it represents as well.
Thank you very much. I don't see any further questions. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you.
Thank you for talking.
Next up, we have Lindsay Setti. Good afternoon, Lindsay.
Good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Lindsay Setti. I am an advocacy manager with the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. I appreciate the opportunity to provide commentary today on House Bill 5180 and Senate Bill 153. Specifically, I want to address provisions of these bills regarding transition services that raise budgeting concerns and the inability for municipalities to plan ahead for students with special needs placed from the CTEC system. As you all know, towns and cities are largely responsible for the financial cost of providing special education services for their students. Just one unbudgeted special education student can dramatically impact a budget, especially for small towns and municipalities. We all know the cost of special education across Connecticut continues to rise and outpace available funding. The governor's fiscal year 2025 proposed budget only funds the excess cost grant at the fiscal year 2024 level of $181 million, which falls $70 million short of meeting actual need. CCM has long supported efforts to advance adjusting special education funding in Connecticut, and municipalities cannot continue to absorb these excess costs without support from the state to raise them up. So before expanding services proposed in HB 5180 and SB 153, CCM requests that the committee increase the current level of state funding for special education and fully fund the excess cost grant. Thank you for your time today. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Lindsay. Welcome to Education World at CCM.
Thank you.
Representative Johnson.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thank you for your testimony today. So when you look at the special education cost, and you look at the different communities throughout the state of Connecticut, some communities, say, for example, have situations where they provide a lot of nonprofit organizations because they don't get any payment in lieu of taxes for some of the nonprofits. Even when they do get payment in lieu of taxes, they don't get the full amount. You look at a lot of the different areas. We just finally, this cycle have received a commitment to fully fund our education cost sharing grants throughout the state of Connecticut, which in my district was underfunded at the tune of $10 million a year in a little town with just about 4,000 students, which was a huge impact over about 25 years or so. In any event, having set the stage, the impact also of trying to find and pay for and determine whether a child has special needs. Do you think that having a community like that, not getting say another type of education cost sharing analysis for special education is a problem in terms of how we take a look at how we're funding special education?
That would be something I would have to evaluate with our membership. I can certainly take that back and get back to you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
A lot of questions in one question, Representative Johnson. Any other questions? Seeing none. Thank you so much, Leslie. It's great to see you. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks. Next up, we have Steffi Frias.
Hello.
Hi.
Good afternoon, Senator McCrory, Representative Curry, and distinguished members of the Education Committee. My name is Steffi Frias. I am a proud childcare union organizer for SEIU CSCA Local 2001, a former childcare provider for 5 years in Waterbury, a parent to two, and co-chair of Childcare for Connecticut's Future, a statewide coalition of parents, providers, and advocates coming together to fix childcare. I am testifying in response to HB 5051, an act establishing Early Start Connecticut, and SB 152, an act implementing the recommendations of the Office of Early Childhood, as well as support for Governor Lamont's Blue Ribbon Panel's recommendations. I've seen firsthand as a childcare organizer, parent, and community leader how early education impacts everyone. There's research that states that when children between the ages of birth to 5 receive quality care and early education, they have a better chance of staying in school and graduating from college. There are fewer teen pregnancies, improved mental health, and even lower risk of heart diseases in adulthood. Why wouldn't we want our children to thrive in their adulthood? It all starts in their early years. Currently, the Care for Kids programs have a wait time of 3 months, leaving providers unpaid, struggling to make ends meet by the end of the month, getting into more debt by accruing interest in credit cards, and devaluating their work. On the other hand, parents are desperate and scrambling to find care, almost being forced to leave their children in places where the child's mind is not being stimulated. All legislative initiatives I previously mentioned attempt to streamline state funding, increase childcare access for families, and expand opportunities for professional learning. Programs like Care for Kids subsidy are riddled with issues. As a childcare union organizer, parent, and community leader, I am motivated by the Office of Early Childhood and the governor's desire to fix childcare, but these bills are not nearly enough. These bills are the beginning of the support parents and providers need, services families should already have. Programs like Care for Kids are a critical resource for working families. Therefore, we support a funding increase to raise the subsidy income limit from 60% to the state median income to 65%. Attention to expanding access with help middle income families continue to struggle to afford care. Improving access to high quality, affordable childcare will require commitment and public funding and will require long-term state investment. I hope you consider passing HB 5051 and SB 152 to support the Blue Ribbon Panel's recommendation and explore long-term options for generating state revenue to raise these funds needed to support family, childcare, and early education. I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Don't see any questions. Enjoy. Next up, we have Martha Torres.
Buenas tardes, distinguido miembro de educación. Mi nombre es Marta Torres y soy proveedora de cuidado infantil en Danbury desde hace más de 12 años, miembro orgulloso del Sindicato de Cuidado Infantil, SU, y CSEA, Local 1, y miembro de Child Care for Connecticut Future, una coalición estatal de padres y proveedores y defensores que se unen para arreglar el cuidado infantil. Estoy testificando en respuesta a la HB 5051, una ley que establece el Connecticut de inicio temprano, y la SB 152, una ley que implementa las recomendaciones de la Oficina de la Primera Infancia, además de apoyo a las recomendaciones del panel Blue Ribbon del gobernador Leila Mann.
Voy a traducir bien rápido, Marta, por favor. Good afternoon, distinguished members of the Education Committee. My name is Marta Torres. I'm here representing myself as a provider but also a member of CSEA, SEIU Local 2001, as well as Childcare for Connecticut's Future. I'm here in support of HB 5051 as well as SB 152. I am a Danbury provider. As I mentioned before, I'm a provider, and I would like to, and she left it there. So Marta sigue, disculpa.
Como proveedor de cuidado infantil, he experimentado de primera mano nuestra lucha y la lucha para evitar endeudarnos solo para poder pagar el alquiler y las facturas de servicios públicos. Somos excelentes educadores tempranos que brindamos un hogar seguro para cuidar a los niños. Sin embargo, muy a menudo tenemos miedo de inscribir a un nuevo niño bajo nuestro cuidado a través de Care for Kids, porque sabemos que tomará meses aprobarlo, lo que dejará a la familia sin recursos para pagar el cuidado y con menos oportunidades para un cuidado infantil de calidad.
As a provider, and many providers, it is a very difficult thought and scary thought to take in new clients right now in this climate, because when you talk about taking in new clients, you're also factoring in the bills that you have to ask parents to pay and pay for the childcare that we're giving. Oftentimes nowadays might take anywhere to 2 to 3 months in order for us to get paid, which makes it very difficult.
Actualmente el programa Care for Kids tiene un tiempo de espera de 3 meses, lo que hace que los proveedores no reciban pago durante meses y que los padres estén desesperados y luchando por encontrar atención. Todas las iniciativas legislativas que mencioné intentan racionalizar la financiación estatal, aumentar el acceso de las familias al cuidado infantil y ampliar las oportunidades de aprendizaje profesional. Programas como el subsidio Care for Kids están plagados de problemas.
The only 3 months, because of those significant Care for Kids months of delay in payment, it leaves parents and providers desperate and scrambling to figure out what to do next. Not being able to pay bills and not being able to figure out how to maintain a business makes it very difficult. But the legislative proposals that I mentioned that I'm in support in allows us to consider additional access to childcare, additional support systems to providers like myself, including professional development, and other very basic needs that we need.
Como proveedor de cuidado infantil,
Have her
me
wrap up.
motiva la Oficina de Primera Infancia y el deseo del gobernador de arreglar el cuidado infantil. Pero estos proyectos de ley no son suficientes. Estos proyectos de ley son el comienzo del apoyo que necesitan los padres y proveedores, servicios que la familia ya deberían tener.
As mentioned before, these bills will help providers in order to fix some of the problems that exist, but they're just the beginning. They are not enough to fix the overall system that is currently broken for parents and providers. Please, thank you for the consideration in this legislation. Gracias, Marta.
Thank you so much for your time today. And thank you again, Eva. Appreciate that. Next up, we have Paul Angiolucci. I apologize if I said that wrong, Paul. You will correct me immediately.
Good afternoon. Sorry. Good afternoon, Representative Curry and members of the Education Board. I'm here today in full support of Senate Bill 153. I've submitted my testimony. I won't read it. I want to give you a quick just wrap up of what's been going on in the last 2 years. That was not planned today when the gentleman, Mr. Feinstein, was praising the CTEC system. So my involvement with the CTEC system is 46 years now, and I started as a 9th grader. went through the tech system. I owned my own business in Bridgeport and went back to teach. I taught freshmen, exploratory plumbing for 11 years, and now I'm a union officer. So this bill, and I'm going to quote you because you're in the room and you can correct me. This morning you said with the first speaker, legislation the first time around is never perfect, something to that. So when the district separated, it was July 1 of 22, it became our own agency, but they weren't ready for it. And there had to be some MOUs in place as far as like HR and payroll and all that stuff. And the MOUs were a year. So July 1 of 23, those expired and the district was all on its own. The same time that was taking place, we had a changing landscape with SPED today, with special education. The district prior had a lot of lawsuits, i.e. inclusion. SPED kids couldn't get in. So the district went to a modified lottery system. And that, I gave testimony last week in appropriations for the budget. I quite frankly thought the budget didn't go far enough. I mean, there were nothing for consumables in the shop. It was just the SPED money that was needed and sort of like an outreach office. So with that taking place, the need for paras, and which our district historically never had, and now there's over 40 to 50 paras in our system and more are needed. There have been school days this year where a school had to close because of staffing levels, not sickness. There weren't enough paras. They pulled substitutes to act as paras. And in the shops, that's very dangerous. You know, I tell my wife all the time, when I taught 9th grade plumbing, I gave 14-year-olds blowtorches all day long, and it's why I'm bald. But these shops are very unique, and as a district, we're very different, obviously, from your average high school. So I just want to submit it and say it's about 2.5 years late. I'm in full support in it and here to answer any questions on the CTEC system as well.
Yeah, no, we appreciate that. And listen, we understand that superintendents, executive directors, our commissioners of agencies can only tell the story up to a point in which the governor allows them to tell. And that there's always more to that, and the needs are always greater than what's presented to us. And that's why it's so important that we're able to have these public hearings and have a bit more open and honest conversations with folks who are actually in the work, and not those who are watching it being done from the outside. So we appreciate that, and we hope to have additional conversations with especially the tech system. Now that you are your own entity, we, I think, as a legislature, truly believed in that and want to see that become exactly what you all believe that should be. And so we need to know better how to make that happen. And so we look forward to those conversations. Any questions or comments from members? Seeing none, again, really appreciate your time today.
All right, thank you.
Take care. Next up, hopefully indoors this time, as she was testified in the snow last time, is Jocelyn Delancey.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. And yes, I just zipped up to Hartford, so I'm sorry I couldn't make it across the street. But I'm here today to speak on behalf of the Connecticut Education Association and the over 40,000 active aspiring and retired members that we have. I've said earlier that there's no greater investment than our public education system, and I'll say it again. But that system doesn't start just in kindergarten. And we understand that the importance of supporting our early childhood educators and the system is really important. And as an elementary school teacher, I can say that the students that come to me ready to read, ready to learn, and supported have come from really dynamic and supportive early childhood settings. And I don't know if you know this about me, but I have a twin sister and she teaches a 3s program down in Stamford. And I see the magic that happens in her classroom. But she works for a private school that is well-resourced and is able to do things like pay their workers and their teachers competitively. And we need to be doing that statewide with all of our programs, and so that everybody has access to a really strong foundation in early childhood. So we support that. The issue is that we can't do it in one space or the other. We can't put early childhood against our elementary schools and our secondary and our higher ed. We have to be supporting this investment of our public education system full on, so that when we support our early childhood, which we do, and we know that we can't have a strong public education system without a strong and supported early childhood system. But we need to make sure that we're doing it together and in support of the investment full through. This approach of we're going to take money from one to the other isn't going to work. We have to full on invest in everything. And we know and we support that our early childhood system needs the care and appreciation and respect that it deserves to have, so that we can ensure that our students, all of them, are starting out their earliest journey in the education system in a really careful and guided way, because we know that the supports that they get in that space are going to help us in our other spaces. And so as we move forward, we want to make sure that we do this together as a team and that the investment is really there for everybody. And as far as something else is that we have to make sure we're listening to the people who are in the rooms where it happens. We have to be listening to the stories of the educators and giving them the tools, resources, and supports that they are asking for, because they know what works and they know how to do it right. So I appreciate the time to testify today, and I look forward to seeing how this moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. I'm sure we will see you again later this session. Enjoy your afternoon. And lastly is Ann Mineski. Ann, it's good to see you and welcome to session 2024.
Thank you, Representative Curry. It's good to see you as well. Dear Chairman McCrory, Winfield, and Curry, ranking members Berthel and McCarty, as well as members of the Education Committee. The Connecticut Republican Assembly is an organization which has members and friends totaling almost 600 Republicans and conservatives across the state of Connecticut. We stand firm in our principles and our unalienable rights under the U.S. Constitution, as well as the rights and responsibilities within the Connecticut Constitution. I'm Ann Mineski, a 25-year resident of Connecticut, former licensed professional counselor, and current president of the Connecticut Republican Assembly. We, the people, are very concerned by the issues that are going on within the Connecticut public education system, non-academic ones masked as academic. Apparently, we have a dis-ease. One size fits all. This is unconstitutional. These are a lot of just general concerns in regard to our education system. One is that our NAEP statistics, excuse me?
Is there a particular bill on the agenda that you're linking these to?
Yes, HB 5180, implementing the recommendations of the Department of Ed, and 154 AAC concerning schools.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. They're just very general though. The NAEP statistics showed that in 2022, Connecticut scores have gone down in reading and math. While this is an overall view, many school districts had well-rounded reading programs with compilation of phonics, balanced readings, and other programs that could tailor to an individual student. Yet the state has pushed in a right to read law, which is another unfunded mandate, as well as an equity mandate. This is very concerning in that school districts were demanded to adhere to this, even though some who applied for waivers did not receive those waivers, as if the state knows better than the
And I
local
gave you a little bit of leeway, but the right to read is not part of the legislation that we're hearing today. So if you want to move on to your next.
I'm sorry. This is, I'm a resident of Connecticut, and these are my concerns.
Yeah,
the state is not looking at the individual child. I've personally submitted testimony over the past 10 years about the problems with Common Core as to an individual child's development, specifically the vision system. Pushing Common Core, now Connecticut Core, which was a pilot program which has never been discussed, and other reading programs onto a child under the age of 10 can be harmful, as their vision development may not have been fully developed. Common Core was established pre-2008 which allowed for a child to be met at their level of learning. And if issues occurred, teachers may have individually worked with a child and the family to obtain recommended special services. Now, with all being pushed on the child, ready or not, issues such as dyslexia have been exacerbated, as well as mental well-being of children. This has been written about in the book, The Hurried Child by David Elkind, which was printed over 25 years ago. It is my hope and prayer that many on the Education Committee will see the light and nullify this right to read law.
If you could go
Never
ahead.
before has a specific curriculum been pushed into law in the state of Connecticut. The time is now to make corrections to the education statutes and truly giving Connecticut's children an education before any children receive a developmentally inappropriate curriculum.
And could you please summarize for us?
Yes. Recent statistics provide that over 33,000 children are no longer attending Connecticut public schools. This may be in part that they have been enrolled in private, parochial, homeschooled, or as one person has said to me, their family has moved out of state. We in Connecticut need to look at our whole public education system so that we can make true remediation and not just going through the cultural Marxist lens with critical race theory, diversity and equity and inclusion, and comprehensive sex education. Our
And
children deserve a classic
and
education.
I really appreciate your time
Thank
with
you.
me today, and I'm sure we'll see you again in the future. Is there anyone else who has not testified that was signed up or would like to testify?
I'm sorry, does anyone have questions?
No, there were no questions. My apologies.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great afternoon.
I don't know. You're right. I didn't know.
Oh.
Are there any questions from members? Seeing none, thank you so much. And
Thank you, Representative Curry. Have a great day. God
afternoon.
bless.
We are adjourned.